I have a zombie assistance system. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326, Being Teased. This time, he really charged, instead of using extreme speed like before. After all, since extreme speed was useless, there was no need to use it again. The long-haired cat glanced at Wang Qiushui, without moving at all, with a bored look, just waiting for Wang Qiushui to come to him. And its tail kept waving and slapping the ground, as if warning Qiushui that, if she dared to come up, she would be whipped. When Wang Qiushui was about to rush in front of the long-haired cat, he jumped up directly. The long-haired cat casually swung a claw as usual, as if slapping a fly. However, this claw did not work as well as before, because the claw fell directly into the air and didn't hit anything. When Wang Qiushui jumped up, he suddenly used extreme speed, so he appeared in another direction, dodged this slap, and then the hammer of the earth hit the long-haired cat's head. The pupils of the long-haired cat contracted for a moment, and then returned to calm. Then, another claw slapped lightly and slapped Wang Qiushui away again. He couldn't bear to watch from upstairs. Well, have you forgotten that cats have 2 claws? Wang Qiushui snorted coldly. You can do it if you can. He quickly said, I can't do it, so you should do it. I'd better be a spectator quietly. His extreme speed also came from Wang Qiushui. Even Wang Qiushui could only be beaten, and the same result would happen if he went up. Moreover, his body was still a human body. I'm afraid he would have to take a healing pill if he was hit by a claw. As for the 2 people attacking in different directions, the long-haired cat couldn't react. Well, according to the reaction speed of the long-haired cat, it is very likely that each of them would be slapped and then slapped away. On the other side, Qiushui became invisible again and then stabbed the long-haired cat's anus with a gun. It seems that she has identified that position. However, the long-haired cat's tail paused in the air for a moment and then slammed down. With a bang, the floor cracked directly and the cement splashed everywhere. Qiushui was also hit by this blow and flew backwards and only stopped when she hit the wall. Qiushui frowned. What's going on? I thought it saw me out of the corner of its eye, but I was obviously invisible. How could it detect my movements? He sighed. Cat's ears are very sensitive and can hear subtle sounds. I saw its ears move just now, so even if you are invisible, it will still be discovered unless you don't make any sound. Qiushui showed up directly. If that's the case, there's no need to waste energy on being invisible. Then, she transformed into a crab form and blew out a bubble from her mouth. The bubble was illuminated by the sun, showing a colorful light, and then slowly floated towards the long-haired cat. The long-haired cat only has a strong hearing, but cannot feel the change in airflow. As long as the bubble wraps the long-haired cat, their attack will work. Wang Qiushui naturally saw the bubble, so she rushed up again. This time, they didn't really want to attack, but just wanted to attract the long-haired cat's attention and let the bubble work smoothly. The bubble quickly floated behind the long-haired cat, then landed on it, began to grow rapidly, and gradually wrapped the long-haired cat's body. Wang Qiushui and the others were delighted, and each of them raised their weapons to prepare for the attack. At this time, the hair on the long-haired cat suddenly stood up, like a sharp needle, and pierced the bubble. So, the bubble was pierced before it even had time to bring the long-haired cat to the sky. The hands of the 2 people who were preparing to attack stopped abruptly and quickly retreated. The long-haired cat even looked back at Qiushui with expectations in his eyes, as if it would be fun to pierce the bubble. Qiushui gritted her teeth. It's just too much. Then, she put the big pliers on the ground again. The ground began to sand from where she was and extended all the way to where the long-haired cat was, until the front and back of the long-haired cat were sanded and stopped. For this reason, Wang Qiushui also retreated a long distance. Moreover, she did not dare to step in easily, as it would be difficult to get out if she got stuck. Then, the 2 looked at the long-haired cat together. The long-haired cat turned its head and looked around, then stood up easily. Its feet were clearly on the sand that was like the surface of water, but it never got stuck. Wang Qiushui was stunned. What's going on? With such a big body and such a heavy weight, how could it not get stuck? Could it be that Newton's coffin lid couldn't hold it down again? He took a look and saw that, although the sand was stepped on by the long-haired cat, it was constantly flowing. He thought for a while, it should be that the long-haired cat's paws are constantly moving, forming a balance with the sinking sand. When they are in uniform motion, they are actually relatively still, so it didn't fall. This can be said to be an alternative way of leaving no trace in the snow. Wang Qiushui blinked. What a mess. He sighed and finally said directly, this is the content of junior high school physics. Anyway, it's more or less the same. In short, you just need to know that the sand trap is useless to it. Wang Qiushui nodded. Oh, I understand when you put it that way. Qiushui obviously also found that the sand trap was useless, so she directly retracted her pliers and turned back to her original zombie form. In the past, these abilities that could play a surprise attack role were all ineffective after facing the long-haired cat, and she had used up her more special abilities. There was really nothing else to do, so she could only choose to fight hard. Wang Qiushui also swung the hammer of the earth again and asked curiously, it obviously has good strength, why hasn't it been ruthless to us? Just now, the long-haired cat looked lazy. If you didn't know, you would think it was basking in the sun. There was no murderous aura at all. He thought for a while, you must have never kept a cat before. When cats encounter prey, they usually don't bite it to death. Instead, they play with it first, exhaust the prey's physical strength, and then eat it. I don't know if this is their strategy or their bad taste, but it's basically like this. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment. So, it wasn't that it was not afraid of my attack just now, but was playing with me? He nodded. You can think so. Wang Qiushui said angrily. Shut up. After that, he swung the hammer of the earth and rushed over angrily. He touched his nose. I didn't say anything wrong. Why do you want me to shut up? Besides, I'm not playing with you, and it's useless to get angry with me. However, he was just talking to himself. Otherwise, he was really afraid that Wang Qiushui would stretch out his arm and swing the hammer of the earth at him. Chapter 327, Kicking hair and inserting eyes. Then, Wang Qiushui and the other person launched several attacks on the long-haired cat, but still failed to achieve any results. What made them a little relieved was that the long-haired cat's physical strength did decrease. At least its reaction speed was not as fast as before. During this period, the long-haired cat also became serious. 5 claws stretched out, like 5 sharp steel knives, and the wall was full of scratches from the claws. Its fangs seemed to have a cutting function, but Wang Qiushui was too small and had a fast speed, so he was not touched by the fangs. And it itself has super fast speed, but unfortunately, it is difficult to display it in this place. After all, this place is a small alley, and you can only run back and forth. It did try to climb up, but was directly forced back by Wang Qiushui's outstretched arms. During this period, Qiushui saw that the long-haired cat's physical strength had weakened and tried sand traps and bubbles several times, but still failed. She also gave up completely. It was not because of her lack of ability, but because the long-haired cat was too restrained by her ability. After being slapped away again, Wang Qiushui frowned as she looked at the claw marks on her dark skirt. If it weren't for this armor, she would have been cut in half. But if it goes on like this, the armor won't last long. She looked at Qiushui, who also had a headache. At this moment, she suddenly remembered her ability, so she winked at Qiushui. Qiushui understood and tightened her Dragon Slayer spear. After all, they had experienced so many battles, so they still had a tacit understanding. As for why he didn't convey it through him, it was mainly because opportunities are often fleeting. Just like now, the long-haired cat actually took the lead in attacking her, and this was an opportunity. Wang Qiushui closed her eyes and directly used the consciousness to descend. Even if she couldn't control the body of the long-haired cat, as long as she could make it pause for a moment, that would be enough. Because Qiushui would take the opportunity to attack. Sure enough, at the moment of consciousness, the long-haired cat lost its spirit in its eyes, as if its brain was directly empty. The body was out of the control of the brain, gave up the previous attack, and fell directly down. Qiushui saw it and thought, good opportunity. It was too late to use sand traps at this time, and it might not work. So, she rushed forward with the Dragon Slayer spear, and she must hit it this time. Unfortunately, the long-haired cat only paused for a moment, and regained consciousness again. Feeling that Chrysanthemum was in danger, it had no time to attack Wang Qiushui, but swept its tail directly at Qiushui. Qiushui thought it was a pity and quickly retreated. It was not her fault, the time was really too short. Even if she prepared for the attack in advance, it would probably be difficult to succeed. Wang Qiushui opened her eyes again. Her face looked a little ugly, and it seemed that the coming of consciousness this time was also very consuming for her. He watched the whole process and sighed. I thought you two were going to continue to fight hard. You finally got it. Wang Qiushui looked up at him. So what if you got it? It's still useless. It's only 1 second, or even less than 1 second. There is no way to launch an effective attack. He shook his head. It's certainly not enough to just let your consciousness descend, but you can launch other attacks at the same time. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment. For example, he replied, kick the hair. Although its ears are very good, its 2 eyes are also very important, and it is one of the places that are not covered by hair. As long as you can poke its eyes blind, it will be much easier to deal with it next. Wang Qiushui nodded and prepared to act. He reminded again, by the way, considering the cat's reaction speed, it may not be safe if you just kick 2 hairs. It's better to kick more hairs in order, so that it can't defend itself. Wang Qiushui looked at his hair. I feel like I'm going to become bald. I feel so sorry for my hair. The long-haired cat seemed to feel that he was giving it advice, and it blew air directly at him upstairs, as if it was ready to pounce at any time. He showed the life and death knife. I wonder if your fangs are longer or mine. The long-haired cat was still breathing, not afraid at all. If it hadn't considered that Wang Qiushui was still guarding beside it, it would have rushed up. He looked at the knife in his hand. Sorry, I forgot to make it longer. The next second, the life and death knife directly became 4 times longer, and the silver blade looked hard to deal with. The long-haired cat waited and looked at Wang Qiushui again. Wang Qiushui was speechless. Obviously he is just a human, but I'm a level 4 zombie. Why do you think I'm easier to bully? He smiled. Maybe it has killed a lot of zombies, but not many humans, so the fear of humans is still there. Or maybe it knows that it will only get beaten if it climbs up, and the possibility of getting beaten is not that high against you. Wang Qiushui snorted coldly, it will regret it. Then he closed his eyes again. Qiushui was still ready to move forward with a gun. Even if it didn't work, it could distract the long-haired cat for a while. The next second, the long-haired cat's eyes were blank again. But perhaps because of the experience once before, it has developed resistance, and this time it recovered faster than before. As soon as it recovered, the long-haired cat saw a hidden weapon piercing its eyes in front, and heard the zombies behind it attacking its anus again. So, it multitasked, slapped its claws forward, and slapped off the 2 hairs that were shooting at it. At the same time, it swung its tail behind it, and directly knocked Qiushui out. Just when it thought it had escaped, it suddenly felt a pain in its 2 eyes, as if something had been inserted into them. This was not over yet, and there was another pain immediately afterwards, and it was stabbed twice. Wang Qiushui snorted coldly. This is the result of looking down on me, but it's a pity for my 6 beautiful hairs. Her 6 hairs attacked the long-haired cat's eyes 3 times. The one that was slapped off in the front was only the first time, and the next 2 times she successfully pierced into the opponent's eyes. The corners of his mouth twitched. Isn't it just 6 hairs? Is it necessary to be like this? Besides, your head is full of hair, and you can't even tell if a few are missing. Wang Qiushui responded, I treat them all equally, and I don't know how long it will take for them to grow back. He shook his head. What's the point of treating them equally? I've seen a joke before. Someone posted a circle of friends saying, I lost my Jenny forever today. Someone commented, did you break up with your girlfriend? He replied, no, Jenny is one of my hairs, and each of my hairs has a name. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment. Then he is really idle. He has to name so many hairs, and he has to remember them. How did he do it? He laughed. The man is a bald man, with only a few hairs on his head. Of course he can remember them. Qiushui laughed. Wang Qiushui looked at his full head of hair. I suddenly feel much better. Chapter 328 Cat and Bug. While they were telling jokes, the long-haired cat was twisting wildly because of its injured eye. It tried to scratch its eye with its claws, but because the hair was too thin, it couldn't get it out at all. It was really a thorn in the eye. In addition, the alley was too narrow, so no matter how hard the long-haired cat struggled, it could only hit the wall and couldn't escape directly. Besides, it couldn't see with its eyes anymore, so it was a problem whether it could find the way. The reason why they didn't attack immediately was that they wanted to wait for the long-haired cat to struggle for a while and try to consume its physical strength so that it would be easier to attack. Besides, now was the time for it to get angry, so there was no need to go up and get beaten and be its punching bag. The long-haired cat struggled for a long time and seemed to accept its fate, or it had no physical strength left and stopped struggling. However, it still lay on the ground with its ears erect, listening to the movements around it. It seemed that losing its eyes did not have a big impact on it, and it still had the strength to fight. Wang Qiushui rushed forward again, swinging the hammer of the earth. This time I want to see if you are still that powerful. Qiushui also followed forward. She was so frustrated in this battle. The long-haired cat tilted its head slightly, as if it was listening to the footsteps of the two. Then, it swung its claws and smashed its tail as before. However, this time, it miscalculated. Although the tail successfully interrupted Qiushui's attack again, the claws missed this time. Wang Qiushui also used extreme speed when jumping up, but before, he was always slapped away by the claws, but this time he successfully avoided the claws of the long-haired cat. By the time the long-haired cat determined Wang Qiushui's position, based on the sound of the wind, the hammer of the earth had already fallen on the long-haired cat. However, this time it still didn't work, because the long-haired cat's hair all stood up, as if it had exploded, and it looked like a hedgehog. The most important thing is that its fur has become extremely hard. The hammer of the earth hit it like hitting a steel nail, and it didn't have any effect at all. Then, Wang Qiushui kicked the long-haired cat, and his body instantly exploded back, avoiding the next claw attack. After blocking these two attacks, the long-haired cat's fur did not return to its original state, but remained erect, as if trying to protect itself. Qiushui looked at the spikes that tightly protected the chrysanthemum, and was speechless. It's hard to attack now. Wang Qiushui looked at the erected fur, then looked at the hammer of the earth in her hand, and directly switched to the long-handled soul-breaking sword. I want to see how hard your fur is, whether it will be cut off. After that, she attacked again, still doing the same operation. And this time, she also swung the soul-breaking sword smoothly, slashing on the hard fur, and directly cutting off the fur. Wang Qiushui's face lit up, as if she saw the dawn of victory. I'll chop you into a hairless cat later. Let's see how you can block it then. Qiushui could only watch from the side. After all, her Dragon Slayer spear was not for chopping. Although the blade can also achieve the effect of chopping, the benefits are not proportional to the effort, so there is no need. At this time, the long-haired cat seemed to feel the same, and the hard fur that was about to be chopped by the soul-breaking sword suddenly softened and all fell down. The soul-breaking sword slid directly over the fur. Not even a single hair could be cut off. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment and quickly retreated to avoid the next attack, and at the same time complained, "You can still do this. This is too much." She finally understood what it meant to be soft and hard. The fur of mere cat could be soft and hard. She wanted to attack the long-haired cat's eyes, but after the cat became blind, it was very clever, and its two claws almost never left the range of its eyes, and it could come back to help at any time, leaving her helpless. He shook his head. "It seems I have to do it." Wang Qiushui asked curiously, "What do you have to do?" He looked at Qiushui. Sand trap. Trap the cat first. Qiushui was stunned for a moment, and then she turned into a crab. But this time, after she put her pliers on the ground, she did not let the sand trap spread forward, but spread to both sides. After reaching both sides, it began to spread along the walls on both sides. So, except for the walls on both sides turning into sand, the ground was still intact. This is a new ability she has developed recently. In the past, She was misled by the name of sand trap and thought that it could only turn the ground into sand. In fact, it can also turn both sides, but it requires her to control it hard so that the sand does not fall. In other words, the sally is too wide for her pliers to reach, otherwise she can just use the pliers to press against the wall. The long-haired cat also heard the movement on both sides, and its head began to twist constantly to avoid missing some subtle sounds. However, now the sounds on both sides are just spreading around it, and there is no sign of attacking it, so it did not act rashly. Finally, at a certain moment, the sand on both sides extended to the opposite side. When they touched in the air, they merged together to form an arc-shaped arch bridge. Then, the arch bridge began to press down, trying to fix the long-haired cat inside. The long-haired cat only felt a sudden pressure on its body and subconsciously wanted to resist. After a few seconds, it suddenly felt a little comfortable, and a biological instinct buried in its body was instantly awakened. Not only did it not struggle, but it drilled out along the passage. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment. "What's going on? Does it think we are playing?" he replied. "Cats like to drill holes in boxes. Isn't there an emoticon package that says, 'I'm a cat bug'?" Wang Qiushui shook her head, "But this is just right. It can't hide this time." After that, she rushed over with the soul-breaking knife and stabbed the long-haired cat's sides directly. The space inside was too narrow, and it was not easy to chop. Besides, it was difficult to chop with its hair. Stabbing the eyes is different. This is to go straight to the vital point, and because the hair has fallen down, there is no obstruction. The long-haired cat naturally felt Wang Qiushui's attack, and the whistling sound of the soul-breaking sword was almost in front of it. It hurriedly raised its two paws to block its eyes, and blocked the attack. Then, it slapped its claws, and smashed the hardened wall above its head. Its entire head stuck out, and its body followed it to climb out. At this time, he jumped out directly from above, shouting loudly, "Cat, cat, take my knife." The long-haired cat was shocked. It didn't expect to be hit as soon as it came out, but its ears moved a little, and from the sound of the wind, the blade was still some distance away from its eyes, so it still had time to dodge. Chapter 329, One Step at a Time. At this time, there were strong enemies in front and attacks from above, but the level 3 zombie behind him could not cause any harm to him from beginning to end. In addition, he was injured now, so it was not suitable for him to continue fighting. It was better to run away as soon as possible. Therefore, the long-haired cat did not think much and directly slapped the wall with a sharp claw. Anyway, the knife above would not cut him for a while, as long as he could get away before that. However, at this moment, the knife that fell from the sky suddenly became 4 times longer and pierced into the eye socket of the long-haired cat. The long-haired cat was hit hard and twisted wildly, and its claws slapped everywhere. He didn't even have time to pull out the knife and shouted, "Qiushui, save me." Wang Qiushui had already stretched out his arms to pull him back and said with a smile, "You looked very handsome when you fell from the sky, but you were really embarrassed when you asked for help." He breathed a sigh of relief. "It's okay, I can't force me to pretend all by myself. I have to let you show your skills occasionally." However, this knife finally hurt it. From now on, it is basically dead. Since the long-haired cat couldn't see, he deliberately changed the knife back to normal size when he jumped down, just to make it misjudge. Then when they were about the same distance, he stretched it out instantly, so that the long-haired cat had no time to react. Now it seems that this trick is really effective. The long-haired cat was in pain and frantically swept the wall with its claws. Those walls were not strong to begin with, and they broke directly under the sharp claws before they lasted for long. The long-haired cat felt that the restraints on its body were gone, and its hair stood up instantly to protect its whole body. Then it rushed out madly. Its 2 claws swept wildly in front of it, and all the obstacles on the road were cut into 2 pieces. Qiushui was standing right in front of the long-haired cat at this time, as if she didn't see the claws at all, and she didn't move at all. Moreover, the aura on her body was slowly gathering, as if she was preparing to use a big move. Wang Qiushui took a look. Just now I was worried about whether to go to save her, but now it seems that it is not necessary. He also nodded. Just now I was wondering, she has accumulated momentum for so many days. Why is it so severe when fighting? Now it seems that she just fought a little bit and actually didn't use it, just waiting to deliver this fatal blow. The long-haired cat naturally felt it, but it was busy escaping now and had no time to care about how terrible the aura of a level 3 zombie was. No matter how terrible the aura was, it was just a matter of one claw. However, to be on the safe side, the long-haired cat stretched out both of its claws and grabbed Qiushui. The sharp nails on the claws were chilling, and it always made people feel that they would be cut into pieces at any minute. Qiushui slowly raised her head and opened her eyes slowly, but she seemed not to see the two claws. Her eyes were focused on the other eye of the long-haired cat that was not stabbed by the knife. Then, she slowly raised her dragon-killing spear, as if in slow motion. The long-haired cat's claws had already slashed towards Qiushui, and it was about to cut her in half. At this time, although the dragon-killing spear looked slow, it was actually faster than the claws. When it was swung, it actually went directly through the gap between the two claws, swish pierced through the eyes of the long-haired cat, and pierced out from the back of the head. Until this time, the two claws just came in front of Qiushui. As the long-haired cat died, the two claws fell down weakly with a bang, and then the body of the long-haired cat also lay down directly. Qiushui shook the Dragon Slayer spear and pulled it out of the long-haired cat's eyes. Then, black liquid began to flow out of the long-haired cat's eye sockets. The two hurried over. After Qiushui pulled out the gun, she could only support her body by standing on the ground. It seemed that this blow had caused great damage to her body. Wang Qiushui sighed. Zilan, your move is so powerful and handsome, much more handsome than someone's. Someone who was checking the body felt that he was shot. Qiushui replied weakly, I can only launch this attack after you have injured it nearly enough. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I can use it successfully. Even if I can use it, I definitely can't take its life directly. Wang Qiushui nodded. I just don't know if you can obtain its abilities. He interrupted. Except for its faster reaction speed, it seems that few of its abilities are suitable for Zilan, so it doesn't matter whether she has it or not. By the way, help her back to the car to rest. Wang Qiushui asked, what do you want to do? He touched the two big fangs. These two teeth are so handsome. Of course we should pull them out and treat them as our trophies. Upon hearing this, Wang Qiushui helped Qiushui back directly. He pulled out the teeth and put the body into the juicer before returning to the car. It's a pity that the skull is broken, otherwise it would be very cool to just hang the entire cat head on the front of the car. It would probably scare away a lot of zombies. Wang Qiushui shook his head. You really have a bad taste. By the way, should we go back and deal with those survivors and those two zombies? No, we should deal with those two zombies. Those survivors should all be dead. He nodded, turned on the car's automatic driving, and drove back to the original position. That depends on how well the survivors' brains work. If they are not so stupid, some of them should be able to escape. Wang Qiushui was shocked. Then we have to hurry. We can't let them get away. Whether we let the tiger go back to the mountain or let them go to tip off, it will be disadvantageous to us. He waved his hands. It's okay. We tricked them. It can't be considered letting the tiger go back to the mountain. At most, they are like a dog with its tail between its legs. Even if we stand there, they may not dare to attack us. As for tipping off, that's even better. Only in this way will other survivors dare not come over. Otherwise, we have to deal with those survivors every day, which is quite annoying. Moreover, the experience they can provide is not much, which is far less profitable than killing zombies. Wang Qiushui suddenly realized, no wonder you don't care much about their life and death. It turns out you want to deter other survivors. He nodded. In the apocalypse, human life is worthless. The rewards provided by the base are so high that there will always be people who don't care about their lives and want to give it a try. However, if they know that coming here means death and they don't even have a chance to fight, then they have to consider whether it is worth it. Wang Qiushui snorted coldly. That's what they deserve. It's a pity that we left too early and didn't see them running away in panic. Chapter 330 Terrifying Ability. On the way back, Wang Qiushui felt bored and asked Qiushui again, "What do you think of our performance just now?" Qiushui thought for a while. "Sister is of course the best. She killed the zombie in one go. As for you and brother-in-law, you are still better." He immediately became dissatisfied. Why? After all, the second to last attack was also made by me, and that attack was very crucial. Qiushui frowned and said, "But Sister Qiushui poked out both eyes of the zombie, and you only poked one eye. Two are less than one, so Sister Qiushui is better than you." Wang Qiushui laughed and applauded while laughing. "Well said, it makes sense." He opened his mouth, and didn't know how to refute for a while. Qiushui didn't understand why, was she wrong, and then looked at the little spider. The little spider didn't understand why, but nodded. Since there were no obstacles along the way, and the car was very fast, it didn't take long to return to the original place. However, this place is a bit different now. Wang Qiushui looked around and asked, "Did we come to the wrong place? Or did we go to a place where someone else was filming a movie?" The place in front of him was in a mess. No, it was no longer a mess, it was simply a ruin. The original building had been beaten to pieces, with rubble everywhere. Some were even blown off by more than half, with only one corner left to support the entire building. It looked shaky and no one knew when it would fall down. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, you would have no idea what it looked like just now. It was just like the scene after the big battle in those movies, so it was no wonder that Wang Qiushui said that. He got out of the car and looked around. It seems that the survivors had experienced a fierce battle, but they were defeated in the end, so they had to escape. Although the two tank zombies don't have much brains, they can really fight. Judging from the situation, they should have followed the survivors. I just don't know if they were lured away or chased after them. Wang Qiushui asked curiously, "Didn't they lose to the two zombies? Why did they lead them away?" He thought for a while, maybe it was to make up for the losses. After all, they suffered heavy losses here. If they can notify the base first and find a way to capture or kill these two zombies alive, they can at least get part of the reward. After all, high-level zombies like this with no brains are rare. The base should also lack high-level zombie materials, and I believe they will not miss them easily. Wang Qiushui's eyes turned when he heard this. Then should we follow them and reap the benefits? At the very least, we can disrupt their plans and prevent them from getting what they want. He raised his head and looked into the distance. Forget it. If the base really takes action, they might deploy some heavy weapons. We only have 2 level 4s now, and we are still not enough to face those heavy weapons. There is no need to confront them head on for the time being. Let's reach level 5. When we reach level 5, we will find a way to sneak into the base and see the situation of the base. If we can fight head on, we will fight head on. If we can't, we will kill their top leaders and then run away. Wang Qiushui weighed it. That's true. We can't even withstand rocket launchers now. The chances of winning a head-on fight are too low. In this case, let them live for a while. Sooner or later they will pay the price. Then let's continue killing zombies now. He shook his head. Let's see if there are any useful things left on those corpses first. Wang Qiushui was speechless. Most of these corpses were smashed into a paste. Even if there are some, they are probably smashed to pieces. He nodded, then walked around and brought back an infrared thermal imager. Those people actually brought this thing, but it's a pity that it's daytime now and they can't use it. Wang Qiushui took a look. Hey, isn't this the thing that is often used for night vision on TV? But, is this thing useful? He thought for a while. I don't know if it's useful for zombies, but it should be useful for us. After all, we are normal humans, and we naturally have body temperature at night, and this can be used to determine our location. Maybe, they can use this to find other survivors. Wang Qiushui nodded. Then this sounds good, but we have a scanner, so it seems that we don't need this thing. He walked directly into the car. It can be regarded as a trophy, otherwise our trip would be in vain, and we didn't get much after risking our lives. It's still the fatty and brother cannon who gave us a large amount of supplies directly. Wang Qiushui followed him into the car. They should still have their old nest, and they came here for the reward this time, so it's naturally impossible for them to carry those supplies around, lest they be robbed by others. He responded, that's true, forget it, let's continue with our plan to kill zombies, and strive to reach level 5 as soon as possible and leave here. Wang Qiushui suggested, by the way, do you want to continue using your title to lure level 4 zombies to kill? That way the upgrade will be faster. He shook his head, forget it, at least I'm not going to use this method for the time being. I just checked carefully, and the damaged parts of the buildings were not actually damaged by rockets, but smashed by the 2 zombies. He didn't just go there to collect the spoils, but also to check the battlefield environment, and analyze the strength of both sides. Wang Qiushui didn't react for a while. Wait, you mean, the building that is about to collapse was not hit by a rocket, but was smashed by zombies? He nodded, and then sighed. No wonder they said that level 4 starts to focus on personal ability. With their current abilities, it's hard for us to withstand a hammer. Fortunately, the cat before was not a tank type, otherwise it would take a lot of effort. Wang Qiushui frowned. Doesn't that mean we can't beat a level 4 zombie? Then what are we working so hard to upgrade for? He shook his head. It's not that we can't beat it, it's just that it takes too much time and energy to beat a level 4 zombie. Compared to what we are doing now, driving around leisurely, looking at the scenery on the road, and then waiting for those zombies to automatically jump into the juicer, the difficulty is much different. Of course, if you and Zilan want to hone yourselves, or dare to challenge, I don't care. Wang Qiushui shook his head repeatedly. Forget it, I'm not interested in fighting with those big guys. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331 Boredom. The two returned to the carriage. After resting for such a long time, Zilan's complexion finally recovered a little, not as weak as before. She looked at the infrared thermal imager. Isn't this the kind of thing used for night vision? Wang Qiushui replied, yes, but this thing is just good looking. For us, it is useless. Zilan picked up the thermal imager and looked at it for a while, and suddenly asked, do you think this thing is useful when I'm invisible? Wang Qiushui didn't know how to answer, and looked at him. He thought for a while, I don't know, but it should be useful when I'm invisible. This thermal imager uses temperature to form an image, and I'm invisible just to gain ear ability. After all, my body is still human and still has temperature, so it should be able to form an image. As for you, it is hard to say whether you will be able to form an image after becoming a zombie. Zilan nodded. Wang Qiushui was puzzled and asked, why is it hard to say? He explained, because it is unknown whether the temperature is still retained after becoming a zombie, and as long as there is temperature, it will definitely not escape this thermal imager. Wang Qiushui thought for a while, my body will be very hot when I transform, and then the skin will become very cold. I should have no body temperature. He frowned. Even if the surface temperature is very low and will not be recognized, the internal organs will still have temperature. Forget it, this has not been tested and can never be confirmed. Wait until tonight, we will try it with zombies and we will know. Zilan nodded. If we can be seen, then I will have to change the direction of my evolution. He sighed and responded, well, if this problem is not solved, it will become a big hidden danger. Maybe when we think we are invisible, we have been exposed to the enemy's eyes. Wang Qiushui immediately sighed. Fortunately, you searched and brought back this trophy. Otherwise, we really would not be able to find this. He sat down on the sofa. We will know after trying it tonight. Wang Qiushui also sat down. However, not long after, Wang Qiushui sighed. So boring. He thought for a while. Want some juice? Wang Qiushui shook his head. He asked again, why don't you go out and kill some zombies? Wang Qiushui still shook his head. Isn't that just looking for trouble? There's already a juicer. Why do you need me? He thought for a while. Then, I'll get you level 4 zombie. You can beat it for fun. Wang Qiushui shook his head repeatedly. Aren't you afraid that I will be hit against the wall by that sandbag-sized fist? He looked at the little spider. Well, let the little spider beat it for fun. It seems to be quite resistant to beating. Zillion uses it to practice martial arts every day. The little spider's eyes widened instantly, and then he ran into Qiushui Zillion's room, and did not forget to close the door. Qiushui Zillion glanced at him. Brother-in-law Qiushui is bullying little spider again. Wang Qiushui looked at him. Find something to play with me. I'm almost bored to death. He thought for a while. Why don't you go out shopping or something? Don't you girls love shopping the most? Just take whatever you like. No one wants it anyway. Wang Qiushui shook his head again. No, it's so boring to go shopping alone. There's no one on the street except me, and that would be even more boring. He sighed. Well, I have no choice. How about we go back to the room? Wang Qiushui glared at him. Do you think Zillion is invisible? Qiushui Zillion stood up quickly. It's okay. I'm going back to my room to rest. Otherwise, I'll tell Zillion to stay in the room for a while and not come out so as not to disturb you. Wang Qiushui quickly said, no, don't listen to his nonsense. Then she looked at him with a red face. Look at you. You think about indecent things all day long. He responded. There's nothing wrong with me. I just suggested that we go back to sleep. There's nothing to do anyway, so of course we should sleep. Reducing exercise can also save energy. Qiushui Zillion waved her hand. I don't care about you guys anymore. You guys chat slowly. Wang Qiushui looked at him. Hurry up and think of a way to make me less bored, or I'll beat you up. No, I'm going to train you. Your fighting level is too poor. You need to train more. He snorted coldly. I was the one who controlled your body in the first place. My fighting level is not bad. It's just that this body limits my performance. Wang Qiushui looked at him and didn't respond. He thought for a while. How about I think of a way? Wang Qiushui nodded. Looking annoyed. I really regret not downloading a few more novels before the internet was disconnected. Otherwise I wouldn't be so bored. He was speechless. How dare you say that? You are also the first person to survive the apocalypse, and you actually went to download novels at the first time. If it weren't for me, I guess you would have starved to death. Wang Qiushui sighed. I haven't tried it before. How would I know what to download? He asked. What if I give you a chance to start over? Wang Qiushui replied. I will try to download a few more novels, but unfortunately I can't go back now. He slapped his forehead with an expression that said I knew it would be like this. Wang Qiushui urged. Have you thought of a way? I can't stand the thought of spending a long time in the car. Otherwise, let's go to the base now. There are many people there, and it's good to chat with them. He thought for a while. Wait a minute, I'll think of a way. According to his plan, they can't go to the base until level 5. During this time, they really have nothing to do, and it's really boring to think about it. Moreover, he would have to walk all the way home in the future, and it would be quite uncomfortable if he didn't find something to kill time on the way. So, he shouted directly, System, come out quickly. I want to discuss something with you. The system replied lazily. What do you want from me? He snorted coldly. Of course I have something good to give you, but with your attitude, I'd better consider it. The system immediately said in a flattering voice. You are the boss. Please speak. He continued. It's like this. The functions of this car computer are too few. I just listen to music and so on, and there are too few things in it which can't meet my needs. So, I want to get a projector and then integrate those computers into the car. Of course, it's mainly the things in the computer. It doesn't matter whether the computer is integrated or not. The system responded directly. Then why don't you upgrade the computer and change the energy method? Or, you can get a generator or something, connect the computer to power it, and then you can get the things inside out. He smiled. Of course I know this. Isn't it too troublesome? So I want to ask you if there is a simple way. The system was silent. Chapter 332 In-Car Entertainment System. In fact, both methods mentioned by the system are feasible. But for the first one, every computer needs to be upgraded, and that will cost a lot of experience points. It may not be a big deal in the short term, but it is obviously not cost effective in the long run. As for the second one, it is really too troublesome, and he has to carry a generator everywhere. And if he wants to store the things in those computers, he has to get a super large hard drive. No, one should not be enough. Maybe he needs several. So, he wanted to see if the system has any permanent solution. Experience points are not a problem. He just killed a level 4 zombie today and gained 10,000 experience points. And there is nothing to spend experience points recently, so there is no need to worry about not having enough experience points. Besides, he sits in the car every day, and there are a steady stream of zombies that turn into experience points. Is there still a problem with experience points? Then, the system said, in fact, you can upgrade the car's computer to automatically obtain content from nearby electronic devices. In this way, you only need to drive around to obtain content continuously without you having to do anything. As for the projector, that's easy. I'll just give you one. He rubbed his hands excitedly. It's rare for you to be so generous this time. The method you mentioned is indeed quite convenient. I wonder how many experience points it costs. The system cleared its throat. Not much, just 10,000. He nodded. Oh, only 10,000. After a few seconds, he almost jumped up. 10,000? Did you see that I just killed a level 4 zombie? So you came to take advantage of the fire. It's too much to ask for 10,000. The system said quickly. First of all, this method is very convenient. You don't even have to do anything, and the resources will come to you. Secondly, this method is truly a one-time solution. After the upgrade, all the energy consumed is a car's energy. If you upgrade the computer yourself, even if it only takes 1 experience point for each computer, you can only get resources for 10,000 computers at most, and you have to do it yourself. But now, if you drive into a community and take a look around, there are hundreds of electronic devices inside, mainly mobile phones, but the resources inside are the same. If you visit a few more communities, can't you make your money back? He thought for a while. Although it makes sense, it's a bit expensive to suddenly ask me for 10,000. Except for this car, I haven't bought anything so expensive. The system said directly. Think of it this way. Even in the past, a better computer would cost more than 10,000 yuan, and now you not only get a computer, but also so many resources. You are definitely making a profit. Moreover, after the upgrade, this computer can be used independently, just like an ordinary computer, and it can also be projected through a projector. How convenient. He thought about it, and shook his head. Just a projector is not enough. You have to at least give me a whole home theater. Oh, and you have to bring a set of karaoke equipment. The system agreed immediately. Okay, no problem. He knew that the system must have made a fortune again, but he thought about it and decided not to ask, lest he feel bad again. Besides, Qiushui has always wanted to find something to entertain himself, so now is good enough. Soon, the system said, deduct 10,000 experience points. The car computer upgrade has been completed, and the in-car entertainment system has been added. Please check it. He said to Wang Qiushui, it's done, but it cost 10,000 experience points. Wang Qiushui took a breath. Why is it so expensive? Am I too wasteful? By the way, why can't I see anything? He replied, I haven't put it out yet. Of course you can't see it. Then he chose a place and put out the home theater and karaoke equipment. Wang Qiushui asked curiously, what are these from? He explained, this set is home theater equipment, which can be used to watch movies and listen to music, which is equivalent to a small cinema at home. This set is karaoke equipment, which can be used for singing. These two are free, and they are connected to the computer, and the computer will automatically obtain the resources of nearby electronic devices, so you won't be bored in the future. Wang Qiushui hugged him and kissed him. Great. He touched his face. Suddenly I feel it's worth it. Wang Qiushui snorted. By the way, how do you turn on these devices? He said directly, I'll give you the authority later. You just need to think about it in your mind and you can turn it on. By the way, I have to put the computer out first. Wang Qiushui nodded. It's not appropriate to put these two sets of things in the hall. I'll make 2 rooms to separate them. By the way, I have to use sound insulation cotton for sound insulation. When he put the computer out, Wang Qiushui had already installed the 2 sets of equipment. He turned on the computer directly and saw a radar-like icon on it, indicating that it was receiving nearby resources. He opened it and saw that there were indeed all kinds of resources, including movies, novels, music, games, and the memory of this computer was infinite, so there was no need to worry about not being able to install it. At this time, Wang Qiushui happened to come over. How is it? Are there a lot of resources? How come there are still such things? Delete them quickly. If Zillion sees them, she will definitely kill you. He swallowed his saliva. It's okay, I'll just hide these. As for this computer, take it back to our room so that Zillion can't see it. Besides, these are the fruits of the teacher's labor, and they will never be seen again. As a trace of their existence in this world, they cannot be deleted. Wang Qiushui snorted coldly. Then who do you think is prettier? The more me. His tiger body shook, and he immediately said, of course you are prettier. I'll delete it now. After that, he deleted those resources. Wang Qiushui nodded. That's about right. I'll ask them to come out and watch a movie. See if there are any good movies. Let's play one to see how the home theater works. He quickly responded, okay, I'll see if there are any good ones. After Wang Qiushui walked away, he quickly opened the recycle bin and clicked restore all. Well, fortunately it was not completely deleted, so it can still be restored. Then, he created another folder, put all the movies in it, and set a password so that no one would accidentally click on it. It is absolutely safe. After doing all this, he chose another family movie, clicked play, and chose to play it in the home theater. Then, he went to get a bunch of snacks and drinks, which are essential for watching movies. Then, he went directly into the home theater room, where the movie was paused. From the screen, it was indeed the same as in the cinema. Chapter 333 Temperature Control. After a while, the door opened, and the three of them walked in. Qiushui didn't have any feelings about watching movies. She usually spent her time practicing martial arts. Qiushui held Spider-Man and looked at the big screen curiously. At the same time, she turned around and asked, can we really watch movies here? Wang Qiushui nodded. Of course, just find a seat and sit down. Qiushui quickly found a seat and sat down. Spider-Man sat next to him and looked at the big screen with curiosity. He didn't even know what it was. After he saw that everyone was seated, he raised a small table in front of the seats and placed snacks and drinks on it. Then, he snapped his fingers again, and the lights in the room were turned off. He immediately pressed it down. Then he said, okay, the movie starts. Snacks and drinks are available. After that, the movie on the big screen began to play. Spider-Man's eyes had already been attracted by the beer on the table. He stared at it and didn't want to move his eyes. Then, Qiushui held it in her arms and said, watch the movie carefully. Don't drink so much beer, or you will have a beer belly. Your belly will be as big as if you are pregnant. The little spider was shocked and stopped looking at the beer. Instead, he looked at the big screen. Soon, the four people and the spider were immersed in the world of the movie. They didn't come back to their senses until the movie was over. Wang Qiushui stretched his body and said, wow, I forgot how long it has been since I last watched a movie. I never thought I could watch it again. I even forgot to eat snacks just now. By the way, don't stop. Continue with the next one. He suggested, we have been sitting for so long. Why don't we take a break? Then 8 pairs of eyes looked at him expectantly. He couldn't help but complain. Little spider, why are you looking at me? Can you understand movies? Little spider looked at Qiushui aggrievedly, and Qiushui quickly said, of course it can understand. Not only can it understand, I will also teach it to read and write in the future. He was speechless. Wait a minute, I'll see what movie to play next. The computer also belonged to this car, so he could control it directly without having to go to the computer. After flipping for a while, he finally chose a movie. Okay, let's watch this next. The 8 pairs of eyes immediately left him and looked at the big screen again. Because there was a movie to watch, they were all fascinated by it and didn't want to leave. Even dinner was prepared by him and brought in. After night fell, he took out the infrared thermal imager and looked at the zombies. Sure enough, the zombies had been dead for a long time, so there was no such thing as body temperature, and it would not be detected by the thermal imager at all. Qiushui walked up to him at this time. "How is it? Can you see it?" He shook his head. "Aren't you watching a movie in there?" Qiushui replied, "You can watch a movie anytime, but it's more important to do business. Since zombies can't be seen by thermal imagers, it's up to us to do it next." He took out a transformation needle and handed it over. "I can't get the ability to transform today. I have to wait until tomorrow. Now you transform first, and I'll see if I can see it." Qiushui took the transformation needle, transformed directly, and then became invisible. This time, no information was received from the system, so it was obvious that this time I killed the zombie cat beyond my level and failed to obtain the opponent's ability. Fortunately, the zombie cat's ability is average, so it's not a pity that I didn't get it. He put on the thermal imager and looked at Qiushui. "I can still see you now. The temperature of your body surface is higher than that of your internal organs. It should be due to the rapid increase in body temperature when you just transformed. However, that temperature is weakening. I don't know what will happen in the end." Qiushui touched her skin. "Well, I can feel that the temperature of my body surface is dropping. By the way, what about the internal organs?" He shook his head. "The temperature of your internal organs has not changed much, and your body surface temperature is still dropping. Now it seems that it may drop to the same as the ambient temperature, or even lower. At that time, it will be unrecognizable." Qiushui asked, "Is it the same as those zombies outside?" He nodded. "Well, thermal imagers use infrared radiation emitted by the surface of objects to convert radiation into temperature and images. Therefore, any object above the absolute temperature will emit infrared radiation. Common methods to avoid thermal imagers are to use tin platinum on clothes to isolate body temperature, hide behind walls or shelters to make your own temperature consistent with the surrounding temperature, and also use specially made high-tech new materials." Qiushui pondered for a while. "There is no way to upgrade the protective gear, and we can't get tin platinum. The limitation of the shield is too great, and we can't get high-tech materials, so the only way is to change our own temperature. By the way, what is the temperature of my body now?" He sighed. "Your body surface temperature is already very low, almost invisible in the thermal imager. However, the temperature of your internal organs has not changed much, so your position can be determined through your internal organs." Qiushui felt strange. "I'm obviously a zombie now. Why do their internal organs have no temperature, but mine still have temperature?" He explained. "I think it is because after they became zombies, their internal organs have melted and turned into black liquid. You should have known very well when you killed the big fish before that there was no such thing as internal organs. So, without internal organs, there will naturally be no temperature. And you, even if your appearance has become a zombie, your internal organs are still human. Of course, this is normal. Without human internal organs, wouldn't you be no different from a zombie?" Qiushui sighed. "But, if this happens, there will be no way to completely hide, which is equivalent to destroying one's own martial arts. I have thought about it. The next evolution is to autonomously regulate body temperature." He was stunned for a moment. "Are you sure? This is not a joke. The body temperature, especially the temperature of the internal organs, has a great impact on the body." Qiushui nodded and said firmly, "I'm sure." He thought about it and finally said to the system, "Assist Qiushui to choose the evolution direction of autonomously regulating body temperature." System, ding, assist Qiushui to evolve temperature regulation successfully and can adjust the body temperature at will. Special reminder, too high or too low temperature will have an impact on the body and even endanger life. When the temperature does not match the normal body temperature, it will also cause rapid consumption of physical strength. He nodded and then told Qiushui these precautions. Obviously, this ability has a great impact on the body, so much so that the system issued a special reminder. Qiushui responded, but there was no special reaction. Chapter 334, Jealous Wang Qiushui. Then, he saw that Qiushui's internal organs were rapidly cooling down and soon disappeared from the thermal imaging device. Although the ambient temperature was not very low, the internal organs suddenly cooled down so quickly, which must have put a great burden on the body. He hurriedly said, "Zilan, how are you?" Zilan's voice was a little trembling. "I'm fine. Can you help me calculate how long I can hold on?" He wanted to cancel the transformation directly, but he stopped after hearing it. "Then cancel the transformation directly, if you can't hold on. I'm afraid it will be too late when you say it." Zilan said and it can be heard from her voice that she is also very hard now. Then, there was a long period of silence. Zilan didn't speak again, and he didn't ask any more questions. Because this might affect Zilan and make her unable to concentrate. When the 3 minutes were up, Zilan suddenly showed her body, and she had already turned back into a human. Then, her body softened, and she almost fell to the ground. He was well prepared, and quickly supported Zilan, and helped her to the sofa next to him. He frowned. "Your body is so cold, almost like ice." This was the feeling of the skin he touched. The internal organs were probably at the same temperature, or even lower. After all, the temperature of the internal organs could not recover that quickly. Zilan opened her mouth, but her lips were frozen white, her teeth were chattering, and she couldn't speak at all. He shook his head, and took out the healing medicine and physical medicine, and stuffed them into her mouth. "I don't know if these can work." The healing medicine and physical medicine instantly melted in Zilan's mouth, and flowed into her stomach. After a while, her face became rosy again. "Thank you, I feel much better now." Just at this time, Wang Qiushui came out. "The movie is over. It's time to put down another one." Then, she saw Zilan with a red face and him who was bending over to observe Zilan. "You guys?" He instantly felt a chill rising on his back, broke out in a cold sweat, and quickly waved his hands and said, "We didn't do anything." Zilan said, "I just upgraded my new ability, and he is feeding me medicine." Wang Qiushui frowned. "Do you have to use this posture to feed medicine? And why is your face so red?" He almost felt like his back was being cut by dozens of knives, and hurriedly explained, "She was overexerted just now, so I helped her to the sofa, and then fed her healing medicine and physical medicine. As for the blushing, it should be caused by the sudden increase in body temperature. Her body temperature was too low just now." Wang Qiushui nodded. "Oh, by the way, put down the movie quickly, I want to go back to watch a movie." After that, he actually walked back like this. He was going to explain, but for a moment he didn't know what to say. Zilan's body had almost recovered by then, so she stood up and said, "Let's go back and watch the movie." Anyway, she hadn't done anything, so she felt at ease. He was stunned for a moment and replied, "Oh." Zilan took 2 steps and turned back and said, "I think next time you can try taking physical strength and healing medicine when the temperature drops, so that you should be able to last longer." He shook his head. "You can still repair your body by taking medicine like this. If you use that method, it's hard to say whether the medicine can still play the role it does now when you finish your transformation. Moreover, you can only last for 3 minutes at a time, and it's the limit. This ability is not worth using, unless it is necessary. The cost is too high." Zilan thought for a while and said, "Well, that's right." Soon, the two of them returned to the home theater room. Zilan looked at the two of them. "Sister, where did you go just now?" Zilan replied, "I just upgraded my new ability." "Was the movie good?" Zilan nodded. Zilan added, "But we'll have to rest after watching for a while. Children can't stay up late." Zilan frowned, then nodded. He sat next to Wang Qiushui and started playing the next movie. Wang Qiushui looked at the big screen without even looking at him, and didn't seem to care as much as she had just shown. He thought about it, and grabbed Wang Qiushui's hand. Wang Qiushui glanced at him, and tried to pull her hand back, but found that she couldn't get rid of it. After trying for a while, she gave up. He didn't say anything, just held Wang Qiushui's hand and quietly accompanied her to watch the movie. When the movie was over, it was almost 10 o'clock, so Zilan and her sister went back to bed. Wang Qiushui looked at him. "Are you willing to let go?" He shook his head. "I won't let go." "What if you run away, if I let go?" Wang Qiushui turned his head to the side. I'm angry. He sighed. Zilan and I were really just testing new abilities just now. There's really nothing between us. Wang Qiushui responded. I didn't say I was angry about this. He was speechless. Then what are you angry about? Wang Qiushui snorted coldly. You grabbed my hand and prevented me from eating snacks, so I got angry. He thought for a while. Then why don't you explain it clearly? If you had explained it clearly, wouldn't you have let go long ago? Wang Qiushui looked at him. I've already said I'm angry. How can I explain it to you clearly? He touched his chin and thought for a while. Then there's no other way. Then, he directly picked up Wang Qiushui in a princess hug. Wang Qiushui struggled for a while. What do you want to do? Put me down. He chuckled. They both went back to sleep, so of course we should go back to sleep too. Or you can stay here. We can watch a movie while we're at it. Wang Qiushui blushed and hit him, whispering, let's go back, otherwise they'll see us. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Qiushui lay in his arms. I know there's nothing wrong with you two, but I just couldn't control my anger at the time. Am I sick? Will you hate me for this? He smiled and stroked Wang Qiushui's hair gently. How could that be? Doesn't this just show that you care about me? I love you so much. How could I hate you? However, I was wrong in this matter. At first I just wanted to try whether the thermal imager could see zombies, and then Zilan followed out and tried it by the way, and then helped her upgrade her new ability. In fact, I should have called you at the beginning, so you wouldn't be angry. Wang Qiushui thought for a while. Actually, I don't mind you and Zilan that much. It's just that you two are sneaking around, as if you're hiding something from me, and I can't stand that. He snorted. It seems that you still have plenty of energy, and you still have the mind to think about these messy things. It just so happens that I learned some new moves today, and I didn't have time to use them just now. Wang Qiushui looked at him. Didn't you delete all those things? Naturally he didn't answer. Chapter 335 Leisurely. In the following days, they lived more easily than before. Every day, they drove around, on the one hand, leading the zombies into the juicer, collecting crystals, and accumulating experience. On the other hand, they obtained resources from various electronic devices. He found that all the resources of this car computer seemed to be directly accessible, and the passwords of electronic devices were useless, because from time to time, some things that looked like confidential files would appear. In order to verify it, he also found an official agency, and then a bunch of confidential files appeared in the computer. However, these are all in the past, and these confidential files have no meaning in this doomsday. However, he wanted to know if he could get the confidential files out of the archives of the base. If he drove the car to a place like the archives room of the base, the base must have done a lot of research. Even if they couldn't understand it, it would be a trophy. If they could get evidence of the base's human experiments, it would be a great blow to the prestige of the base. The most important thing is that the storage space of this computer is unlimited, and it will never be full, no matter how many things are put in it. So, no matter what resources it is, he kept them. This is also an alternative way to preserve the fire of human civilization. Maybe when humans have a chance to catch their breath in the future, these things will be useful. However, because it is too relaxing, and they stay in there every day to watch movies, lack of exercise, it is not good for the body. So, later they watched a movie, and then went to the training room to practice, which can be regarded as a combination of work and rest. As they wandered along the way, the number of zombies in this area was constantly decreasing, and it might become the first place in the world with almost no zombies. Until one day, Wang Qiushui asked curiously, we seem to have been wandering for a long time. Why are there so many zombies here that seem to be endless? He smiled. On the one hand, there are too many zombies, and they will also fight for territory, so some zombies in other places will run here after sensing that there are no powerful zombies here. On the other hand, we have to thank the base. They use planes to lead the zombies to this place every night, so the zombies can't be killed. Wang Qiushui frowned. The base really doesn't do any good things, but all the bad things. It wants to use the sea of zombies to deal with us. But why haven't I seen any planes? He responded. You are watching movies, so of course you won't see them. I didn't notice it at first, but later I found that there were red dots moving quickly, and after checking it was sure it was a plane. They will spray a black liquid at high altitude, which should be the zombie virus, and then the zombies will follow in groups. Qiushui interrupted, since they have sent out planes, why didn't they attack us? He shook his head, their planes are flying very high and very fast. Plus they have been spraying black liquid. I think they are probably worried about encountering flying zombies. After all, there was a saying in the past that pilots are more expensive than planes. There are so few humans now, so it is naturally more difficult to train a qualified pilot. Maybe this is a reason why they didn't fly planes to deal with us. Wang Qiushui asked again, where do you think the base got so many zombies? He smiled. Don't forget that the zombies' primary target of attack is still humans. There are so many humans gathered in the base, and there are so many survivors coming in and out outside every day. I think there must be a lot of zombies around the base, and it is possible that zombies will attack the city. I guess they would have found a way to eliminate or lead away the zombies, but they just happen to use them to deal with us now. Wang Qiushui sighed. Then when can we clean up all these zombies? He was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, did you become stupid from watching movies? We are not playing Candy Crush now. Why do we have to clean up all the zombies? When I accumulate enough experience to reach level 5 and then complete the level 5 promotion task, we will go to the base. As for the zombies that are attracted here, they can do whatever they want. It has nothing to do with us. Wang Qiushui blinked his big eyes and reacted after a while. Yes, but I don't know why. When I think about whether there are still zombies on the clean streets, I can't help but want to get rid of them all. He was speechless. You have obsessive compulsive disorder. Just practice more. And you, Spider-Man, have you been secretly drinking beer recently? Your belly is getting bigger and bigger. He also heard a tinkling sound in the kitchen one night and thought that a mouse had entered the kitchen. However, he thought about it and felt something was wrong. The carriages were sealed, so how could a mouse come in? Besides, he hadn't seen a mouse since the end of the world. Even if there really was one, it should be a zombie mouse. Then when he walked into the kitchen, he was shocked when he saw that it was Spider-Man. Later he realized that Spider-Man was looking for beer, and he was definitely an alcoholic. Spider-Man blinked and then buried his head in Qiusui's arms. He slapped his forehead. You might have been an ostrich in your previous life, and you were reincarnated without drinking Mengpo soup. Qiusui asked curiously, how do you know what it was in its previous life? He explained, only ostriches will bury their heads in the sand when they encounter something, because they think there will be no danger if they can't see. Qiusui nodded. Qiusui interrupted, why do I feel like Spider-Man is about to upgrade? Spider-Man raised his head again, looking like he was the only one who understood me. He nodded, well, it should be about the right time. It has gained a lot of weight. Zillion can hardly hold it. It must have eaten a lot of food alone. However, after it is upgraded, it may become Zillion's mount. Qiusui looked at the little spider in her arms. Mount? Do I need to tie a rope to its nose? Just like a cow. The little spider shook his head repeatedly. Wang Qiushui asked curiously, it was raining when the little spider was upgraded last time, and he was lucky that he was not killed by those people. What should we do for this upgrade? Should we find a safe place for it? The only wet place here is the toilet. How about throwing it in the toilet? He thought for a while. I don't think so. It will choose a place by itself. Anyway, we have nothing to do recently. At most, we can just watch over it. The little spider smiled and narrowed his eyes and then nodded again, obviously agreeing with him. Qiusui hugged the little spider and rubbed it. You won't be able to hold it in the future, so rub it a few more times now. The little spider did not resist and looked very happy. Chapter 336 Equality Medicine. Another period of leisure time passed. During this period, Spider-Man successfully upgraded to level 2. His body became bigger and his strength increased a lot. But here, he can only be a mascot. On this day, he finally received a message from the system. Ding. The promotion task is now released. The host has killed enough zombies. Now you only need to kill 2 level 5 zombies to successfully upgrade to level 5. He nodded. He had been too leisurely these days and his bones were almost stiff. Finally, he had something to do. Moreover, it was just a level 5 zombie. With the joint efforts of the three of them, there should be no problem. After a while, he blinked, as if something was wrong. So, he read the message sent by the system again. System, come out. What's the situation with these two? We are now challenging each other. It's already difficult to fight one, and you want us to fight two. How can we fight? Especially when the individual abilities of high-level zombies are so strong. The system thought for a while. This is indeed a bit difficult. How about this? The mall has opened a new product that can ignore the breath suppression, which should reduce the difficulty a lot. He still wanted to bargain. How can one product be enough? Give me more. I have to deal with 2 level 5 zombies. The system refused. Just one. Do you want it or not? If not, I will cancel it. He hurriedly said, yes, 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 of course. Otherwise, wouldn't we all be defeated by a breath suppression? In addition to the difference in ability, the most important thing is the breath suppression, which is why low-level zombies find it difficult to beat high-level zombies. No, it should be said that they have no ability to fight back. Without the breath suppression, the three of them combined can still fight. Then, he opened them all and saw a brand new pill. Equality medicine. After taking this medicine, all beings are equal and all breath suppression can be ignored. The price is 1000 experience points. This product can only be purchased and used in the current stage, and it will automatically expire after the host is promoted to level 5. He smacked his lips. One medicine costs 1000 experience points, which is really not cheap, but fortunately he has a lot of experience points now, so this little money is nothing. Moreover, this medicine has restrictions on use, just like the paparazzi suit, so his idea of buying more and hoarding it for future use was directly dispelled. However, even with this equality medicine, it is still not so easy for the three of them to join forces to defeat the level 5 zombies. It's not that they can't win, but the difficulty is still a bit high. Of course, in the final analysis, he has too few assistants. If he can pull out a team of level 4 assistants, he can rush over directly, and one person's attack will be enough to kill the level 5 zombies in seconds. However, this idea was still not very realistic, mainly because his requirements for the assistant were too high, and the system did not provide some props to control the assistant. Otherwise he would not mind getting a bunch of cannon fodder assistants. So, in order to reduce the difficulty, he looked at Wang Qiushui again. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment. Why are you looking at me? He smiled. It's time to show your ability again. Wang Qiushui didn't understand, but still said, just tell me what to do. He waved his hand. No hurry, let's go find a level 3 zombie and try it first. As time went by, the level of zombies was also increasing. Although the number of level 3 zombies was not large, they were not as rare as before. Especially those zombies that were attracted by the base were in groups. After the number increased, it was even easier to raise zombies of a slightly higher level. Soon, they found a group of zombies, and the leader was a level 3 zombie. However, he had already turned off the juicer, so the zombies did not go into the juicer, but looked at their car with unfriendly eyes, as if they were ready to charge at any time. He glanced at the level 3 zombie hiding in the center of the zombie group, and then looked at the orderly zombies outside, and couldn't help but smile. It seems that our luck is not bad. Wang Qiushui asked curiously, what do you want to do? Qiushui on the side did not say anything, but her eyes were full of curiosity. He took out the transformation needle and handed it over. Transform, and then use consciousness to descend on the level 3 zombie in the center, and we will talk about the rest later. Wang Qiushui nodded, took the transformation needle, and began to transform. Then, she closed her eyes and began to descend with consciousness. After several minutes, she slowly opened her eyes. Successful. What should we do next? He asked. Try to see if you can use your clone to control other zombies. If I'm not mistaken, that level 3 zombie should have the ability to control it. Wang Qiushui closed his eyes again after hearing this, and after a while, he replied, okay, now the other zombies are under my control. What should we do next? He breathed a sigh of relief. Before, he only knew that consciousness could control the other party, and the clone's own ability could also be used. However, it was still unknown whether the ability to control such a brain that required the use of the brain could be used. After all, the clone was equivalent to a changed consciousness. And now, since the clone can also control other zombies, there are more things that can be done. Then, he took a look at the scan and said, "Go west, there is a level 4 zombie over there, let's go and kill him." Qiushui's eyes burst into murderous intent. "Do you need me to help?" Wang Qiushui asked cutely. "Where is the west?" He first said to Qiushui, "Not for now," and then said to Wang Qiushui, "The west is the west, forget it. Your clone will take the group of zombies and follow the car." Wang Qiushui said "Oh," and then began to control the zombies. It must be said that it was still a bit difficult for her to control such a large number of zombies for the first time. In particular, those low-level zombies are equivalent to level 2 control, and the difficulty is also a bit higher. However, after all, the zombies still followed the car to the west smoothly. Considering that the level 3 zombie was too weak, it was still under the protection of the zombie group at this time. Otherwise, if it was attacked by surprise, the remaining zombies would become headless flies and run around everywhere. He was looking at the scanner and said, "I don't know what type that level 4 zombie is. Never mind, let's just treat the first one as an experiment. There are plenty of zombies anyway, so there's always more." Qiushui watched curiously from the side. Although she didn't know what he was going to do, the fighting spirit in her eyes was almost uncontrollable. Chapter 337 Drug Testing. Soon, the car arrived near the level 4 zombie. He took a look and said, "This skinny body seems to have a strong body. No wonder the base led him away." According to his statistics, the most unpopular zombies are speed zombies. They are too fast and difficult for ordinary people to deal with. This is also the zombie with the largest number of zombies led here. The second is the iron-skinned zombies. This thing is simply hard. If you use an ordinary knife to cut it, it will only break the knife. In other words, it is a waste of knife. And the defense of level 4 zombies like this is not to mention. It can even block ordinary bullets, so there are many of them led here. There are not many tank type zombies that are just resistant to beatings and have no brains. I believe they were dealt with by the base. The last 2 zombies led away by the survivors were of this type. I don't know if they were killed by the base or what. Anyway, he has never seen them. In addition, some other zombies with special abilities and animal type zombies are almost never seen. They should be collected by the base as special materials for a search. The zombie naturally saw the car and the large group of zombies following behind. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Was this food delivered to the door? Didn't he seem to order to kill it? Out of caution, he did not attack directly. Wang Qiushui frowned. No, those zombies are suppressed by the breath and can't move at all. What should I do now? He directly exchanged for an equality medicine. Try this and see the effect. Wang Qiushui asked curiously, "What kind of medicine is this? I don't think I've seen it before." He replied, "This is an equality medicine, which can ignore the breath suppression. You try it." Wang Qiushui swallowed the pill in her hand after hearing it, and it also melted in her mouth. Then she continued to control it. Qiushui on the side looked at it curiously. If there was such a medicine, it would not be a big deal to challenge the higher level. Thinking of this, her fighting spirit became stronger. After a while, the zombies still did not move, but the level 3 zombie in the center came out. Wang Qiushui sighed. "No, those zombies may not be directly controlled by me, so they still can't move. Only the clones I control can move. However, this equality medicine is quite useful. My clones couldn't even move just now. They were completely suppressed, but now they can move freely and are not affected by the opponent's breath at all." The iron-skinned zombie opposite was also surprised. He couldn't understand how a level 3 zombie could escape from his suppression. So, he gritted his teeth, widened his eyes, and increased the output of his breath, but it still didn't work. It was the zombies that could no longer hold on under the sudden increase in the breath suppression, and they knelt on the ground one by one. He took out a transformation needle and handed it to Qiushui. "The rest is up to you. Is that okay?" Qiushui nodded, full of fighting spirit. "Of course, no problem." He thought for a while. "By the way, don't kill this zombie. I still need it." Wang Qiushui swung the hammer of the earth. "Then I'll take back my consciousness first." It's still a bit difficult to do two things at the same time. He shook his head. No, you should practice fighting with two things at the same time first. It will be useful later. But don't go up to that level 3 zombie in the group of zombies for nothing. It's better to throw them into the juicer later. Wang Qiushui thought for a while. Okay, but I'm still a little uncomfortable with this. He smiled. It will be fine. After getting used to it, Wang Qiushui and the other two went out and dealt with it in a short while, mainly because the copper-skinned and iron-boned zombies were really not difficult to deal with. Although they were very hard, with Wang Qiushui's speed, they didn't even have the ability to fight back. Later, Qiushui turned into a crab and made a sand trap. Wang Qiushui cooperated and hammered the zombie into the sand pit, fixing it in place and allowing them to slaughter it. When he got off the car, the zombie had been cut into a stick, with its hands and feet gone, leaving only a pair of stubborn eyes staring at him. Wang Qiushui looked at him and asked curiously, "What do you want to do with him?" He looked at Wang Qiushui. "Try to use consciousness on him now, and see if it works." Wang Qiushui said puzzledly, "Didn't we try it before? There is only a 50% success rate for level 3 zombies, and it only takes a moment for level 4 zombies. There is no way to control it." He shook his head and took the hammer of the earth from Wang Qiushui. "Try it first. Maybe it will be different now." Wang Qiushui thought about it, closed his eyes, and began to use consciousness. Then, the zombie lying on the ground had a slack look in his eyes for a moment, and soon began to focus again, with a trace of fear and struggle that had not yet dissipated in his eyes. He turned his head and looked around, as if trying to find the source. When he saw Wang Qiushui, he looked at Wang Qiushui intently, as if he had finally confirmed something. Wang Qiushui just opened her eyes at this time, and met the eyes of the zombie. She was startled, and subconsciously swung the hammer, and found that there was nothing in her hand. At this time, she remembered that the hammer of the earth had just been taken away. He looked at the zombie, and then at Wang Qiushui. "Try it again." Wang Qiushui frowned. "But, it didn't work when I tried it just now. After all, it is still very tiring to descend to consciousness, not only physically, but also mentally, and this requires a long rest to recover." He shook his head. "This is the last time. If it still doesn't work this time, forget it." Wang Qiushui responded, "Okay, but this is the last time." He nodded, and then swung the hammer of the earth. Wang Qiushui closed her eyes, and began to descend to consciousness again. The zombie's eyes began to disperse again, and soon began to focus again. Seeing this, he directly hit the zombie's chest with a hammer. The zombie's eyes paused for a moment, and then began to unfocus again. But not long after, they slowly began to focus again. He was about to continue smashing, when a gun head from the side stabbed directly over, pierced into the zombie's broken hand, and went straight into the body. Then, the gun body directly spun, and the wound began to grow larger. The zombie's pupils instantly dilated, and his focused eyes gradually became unfocused, and he was obviously losing consciousness. After a while, Wang Qiushui suddenly opened his eyes, and breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't expect it to work." At this time, Qiushui put the gun back. He looked at the zombie, then at Wang Qiushui. "Are you sure it worked?" The zombie spoke directly. "Of course I'm sure." He rubbed his ears. "You'd better not speak. This broken voice is too unpleasant. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338 Two Clones. Wang Qiushui said directly, who knew his voice was so bad. "By the way, how did you do it? It wasn't working when I started, so how come it was working later?" Qiushui also looked at him, but after all, she was watching from the side and intervened, so she did have some guesses, but she was not sure yet. He explained, "In the final analysis, the purpose of your consciousness descending is to fight against the consciousness in the zombie's body, so the weaker his consciousness, the higher your success rate. When his body is intact, his consciousness is naturally intact, and this consciousness is the strongest, so it is naturally difficult to succeed. Wang Qiushui looked at the zombie. So, you want us to cut off his hands and feet and weaken his consciousness? He nodded. I did think so at the beginning, but unfortunately, although the injury weakened his consciousness, it also aroused his ferocity. So, you still didn't succeed at the beginning? Wang Qiushui asked curiously. Then what happened later? Qiushui interjected. Later, when your consciousness descended, he hit the zombie with a hammer, but it only slowed down the speed at which the other part his consciousness condensed. So, I directly stabbed it with the Dragon Slayer spear and kept causing damage to his wound. The continuous injury made it impossible for him to concentrate, and naturally he couldn't compete with your consciousness until finally his body was occupied by you. Am I right? The last sentence was said while looking at him. He nodded. That's right. Wang Qiushui looked at the zombie again. But, this zombie has become like this. What's the point of my consciousness descending? And it has a hoarse voice and can't even speak. He replied, you should withdraw your consciousness first and then see if you can descend into that body. Wang Qiushui said, oh. Then, the zombie's body trembled and the pupils in its eyes quickly began to dilate until they completely lost their focus, as if they were dead. After a while, the pupils began to focus again and returned to their original state. It seems to be okay. Wang Qiushui shook her head. Okay, no problem. She herself could hardly stand the zombie's voice. He breathed a sigh of relief. Since it's possible, then the next step will be easy. Just let the zombie's body recover. Wang Qiushui suddenly realized. In other words, we will have one more level 4 zombie? In this way, our combat effectiveness can be greatly improved. Qiushui nodded. Besides, it's not a pity if this kind of clone dies. When charging into battle, you can let it rush to the front and take charge of some dangerous work. After saying that, she seemed to think it was inappropriate and added, I don't want your clone to die or make your consciousness uncomfortable, but I just wanted to play such a role. Wang Qiushui waved his hand. It's okay. Anyway, he is made of iron and steel, and he can withstand beatings. If he doesn't go up, why should we go up and get beaten? Besides, with this hoarse voice, it would be better to replace it with another one if he dies. Even if he really dies, I can take back my consciousness in advance, and it will be fine. He continued. In fact, it's not just one more. Don't forget that I can also gain your abilities. So, we can have 2 more level 4 zombies at the same time. Wang Qiushui frowned. But if you use consciousness, you can't use other abilities. In this case, you are not convenient to fight in the battle, otherwise it is easy to hurt. He nodded. Anyway, my little body will not resist. Most of the time is watching the show. If I get a shelter, it can play a greater role. Aang said, then you are casual. You're afraid that you will not be able to take back consciousness in time, and you will be scared by the feeling of dying. He laughed. Then you can just understand your previous pain. Wang Qiushui shook his head. Then don't want to see you so painful. Qiushui walked away silently, and the two obviously prepared dog food again. Wang Qiushui was also a little embarrassed and changed the subject. Then let's continue to look for other level 4 zombies. What kind are you looking for? He nodded. Since we already have a bronze and iron body, of course we should find a meat tank type. It must be big, and it's best to be a fat man, so that the fat can weaken the damage. Wang Qiushui asked curiously, I thought you would choose a speed type that can deal more damage. He picked up the zombie on the ground and threw it into the special space of the juicer so that it would not be squeezed into juice and the smell would not affect the car. Then he took Wang Qiushui to the car. It's enough to have the 2 of you to deal damage. There's no point in having one more. As for the speed type, they are not as fast as you. Besides, just 1 bronze skin and iron bones is still not enough. After all, we are dealing with level 5 zombies. Wang Qiushui suddenly said, that's true. If it's a humanoid zombie, it at least has 2 hands. Just enough to beat one with 1 hand. If there's only 1 bronze skin and iron bones, it really can't withstand being beaten by 2 hands at the same time. He stopped. If you want to understand it this way, it's not impossible. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment. Did I say something wrong? He smiled. My original intention was to let these 2 tough ones grab each other's hands or restrain each other, and then you take the opportunity to attack. What you said can be regarded as a kind of restraint. Wang Qiushui's face immediately turned red. The method you mentioned is not very realistic. After all, the strength of level 5 zombies is so strong, so my method is more suitable. He nodded, then leaned close to Wang Qiushui's ear and whispered, "You know what? Actually, you are so cute when you blush. I like the way you are now." Wang Qiushui's face turned even redder, but he didn't know what to say. Then, they got in the car and set off again. Fortunately, although there were not many pure tank zombies, there were some. After walking around for a long time and avoiding those zombies that were not the target, they finally found one that met the standard. Then, there was another battle, and finally the zombie was dealt with. After the iron-skinned zombie ate the virus crystal, it successfully recovered its body and participated in the battle. However, it was the first time after all, so Wang Qiushui was not very skilled. Then, he obtained Wang Qiushui's consciousness descending ability and began to descend on the tank zombie. I don't know if this tank zombie is too resistant or too strong. Although Wang Qiushui and the others were helping him, he still took a lot of effort to succeed. It was because of this that he understood why Wang Qiushui was unwilling to try more just now. It was indeed very mentally exhausting. Chapter 339 Practice. In the next few days, they did not rush to kill the level 5 zombies, but started training. Of course, it was mainly the training of the 2 clones. After all, it was still difficult to do 2 things at the same time. But this would be used in battle, so they had to intensify the training. Even if it could not reach the level of perfection, at least it should not be too rigid, so that when fighting, they could only take care of the main body, and not the clone. The 2 zombies suddenly separated, and then the bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie waved his hands and shouted in a hoarse voice, "No, no, no, this is so unfair. Your body is much taller than mine, and hitting you can relieve my strength. I'm at a loss. The most important thing is, we agreed to divide our attention. My clone will fight yours, and my original body will fight Zillan. It's too uncomfortable, and your original body is just watching the show. It's not fair." The meat tank zombie stopped and asked in a shrill voice, "Then what do you want? My original body won't fight, so of course I can just watch from the side." The bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie responded, "Your original body will have to watch the battle and help with ideas. You have to think as well. It's not as easy as it is now. How about this? My clone will fight your clone, and my original body will fight your original body. That's fair." The meat tank zombie smiled so hard that the fat on his face trembled. "Are you sure? If you insist on fighting, I don't mind." The bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie rushed over directly. "I'm sure." 10 minutes later, he was pressed to the ground by Wang Qiushui. "No more fighting. No more fighting. You're cheating. You just said it was fair. It's obvious that the clone can't beat me, so you're bullying my real body." Wang Qiushui laughed. "No way. You just said it doesn't matter. Why are you saying I'm cheating now?" He sighed. "You can't hit my whole body. Only your hands and feet are left. Isn't that cheating?" Wang Qiushui asked back. "Are you willing to hit my face? What if your face is disfigured? Needless to say, the lower parts can't be hit. And then there's the stomach. A heavy hit to the abdomen will make you faint. So, only your hands and feet are left." He shook his head. "You're wearing protective gear. How could anything happen to you? Besides, there are so many places that you can't hit, and I didn't see you avoid those places when you hit me." Zillan, who was standing by, couldn't stand it any longer. "Well, you two should be serious. This is a training room, not your room. If you're flirting, it's better to go back to your room. After all, it's not a good influence on the children." Zillion and Spider-Man were already stunned. Wang Qiushui blushed and let go of his hand. "Anyway, I won. I'll accept the loss." He stood up and stretched his body. "Even if you win here, there's still the clone." Wang Qiushui was stunned and quickly turned his attention to the clone. "What do you want to do?" At this time, the meat tank zombie rushed directly towards the bronze-skin and iron-bone zombie. Because of its heavy weight, the ground was thumping. The bronze-skin and iron-bone zombie wanted to hide, but considering that the opponent was too big and its speed was not an advantage, it had to take a defensive posture and prepare to strike back. Just when the two were about to come into direct contact, the meat tank zombie suddenly turned sideways and twisted its hips in one go. Then it turned sideways and directly hit the bronze skin and iron bone zombie. The eyes of the iron skin zombie widened for a moment, and then he quickly stretched out his hands to protect his body, but he still couldn't block the attack and flew out with a bang. It didn't stop until it hit the wall behind it, and cracks appeared on the wall. Wang Qiushui looked at him. You are taking revenge. This is too cruel. Fortunately, my clone is resistant to beating, otherwise it would have been smashed to pieces by you. He smiled. Aren't you trying this move with your clone? And your clone is not your real body, otherwise why would I be willing to use so much force? Wang Qiushui didn't respond, but asked curiously, why does your move just now look so familiar? Qiushui interrupted, because I have been using it all the time. As the only victim, the little spider nodded repeatedly. It was beaten every day, and it was very familiar with this move. Qiushui said, you have a pretty good talent. You can actually learn it just by watching. This is also a relatively standard Iron Mountain lean. It's just that your body is too big, so you can't use your shoulder to attack, otherwise it would be more powerful. Wang Qiushui was scared. Then my clone will really be broken apart. He smiled. I was scared to death. I thought you were going to say that you dared to steal our family's unique skills and take your life. Qiushui shook her head and asked, by the way, do you want to learn? It will be useful in future battles. Wang Qiushui took the lead and said, I want to learn. I want to learn. I must get back to Day's place. He hurriedly said, let me make it clear first. It was my clone who did it just now. If you want to cause trouble in the future, find my clone. Don't find me. Wang Qiushui waved his hand and snorted. Of course. Am I the kind of unreasonable person? He didn't answer. Qiushui and Spider-Man looked at him with sympathy. Qiushui reminded him, in fact, the size difference between the two sides is too big. Even if you learn it and use your clone successfully, it may not be able to achieve the same effect as before. Wang Qiushui blinked. Huh. He explained. That is to say, even if my clone stands there and lets your clone push, it can't move. So, the effect of this move is not as strong as you think. Wang Qiushui thought for a while. It doesn't matter. I still want to learn it. Anyway, his size is about the same as mine. He swallowed. Domestic violence is wrong. Otherwise, how about this? My clone stands there and lets you fight back. Wang Qiushui smiled and said nothing. Qiushui said, in fact, it's always a good thing to learn more. Maybe it will be useful in 2 days. Wang Qiushui nodded repeatedly. He said seriously, that's right. It's always a good thing to increase your combat power. Wang Qiushui looked at him. Aren't you afraid of my domestic violence? He shook his head and looked at the 6 pairs of eyes around him. He swallowed the love words he had prepared and finally said 2 words. Don't be afraid. The 2 people and the spider next to him were a little uncomfortable for a while, as if they didn't want to hear such words. Wang Qiushui smiled and looked at Qiushui. Then let's start now. Try to learn more before that, and then make that level 5 zombie look bad. Then, they started training again. Qiushui began to teach them, but she didn't teach them the moves directly. She asked them to practice from the most basic level like Qiushui. Chapter 340 Super Gun. After a week, they were almost done with their training. Of course, it was mainly training to do 2 things at once. Kung Fu cannot be learned overnight. Wang Qiushui looked at him and asked, what are you still looking for? Haven't you found the level 5 zombie? Or are you going to kill 2 of them at once? He shook his head. Actually, I wanted to see if the base had sent out tanks or something like that, and then merge them into our car. It should be easier to fight that way, but unfortunately we haven't found any. Qiushui interrupted. There's no need for them to send tanks here. There are so many zombies here. Even if the tank is made of the hardest metal, it's not enough for the zombies to hammer. He sighed. That's true, but I had a glimmer of hope before, thinking that they might send people to guard the border or something like that, but now it seems that they really don't have that. Wang Qiushui suddenly said, don't we have a lot of guns? Can we merge them together? He thought about it. It shouldn't be possible. Isn't there any change after the hammer of the earth and the soul breaking sword are merged? The soul-breaking sword just has the function of lengthening and shortening the handle. Wang Qiushui suggested, maybe. Anyway, we have so many guns, and we don't use them normally, and we don't know how to maintain them. They will just rust if we keep them. He thought about it. That's right. At most we'll just lose some experience. So, he moved all the guns over. It was convenient to be in the car. You could move things in the car just by thinking about it, which saved a lot of effort. Then, he picked up 2 guns and said, weapon fusion. Then, the 2 guns merged into one, becoming a larger gun. There was no change in appearance, but the muzzle was obviously a little bigger than before. He was surprised. Huh? Wang Qiushui asked quickly, what's wrong? Qiushui looked at the gun curiously, and then looked at the original bullets, wondering if they could still be used. He replied, I remember that I spent 40 experience points when I merged the soul-breaking sword. It was said that experience points would be deducted according to the weapon level. However, I just merged these 2 guns, and only 1 experience point was deducted. Wang Qiushui was delighted, so cheap. Then continue to merge. Anyway, it won't lose much. He nodded, picked up another gun, and merged it with the previous gun. However, he was cautious in his heart, because it was too cheap. With the nature of the system, it couldn't be that cheap. However, this time the fusion was not successful, and the 2 guns remained the same. Wang Qiushui observed for a while, failed. Is this the only way to merge? He thought for a while, then said, it should be that this gun has been merged once, and it is not the same level as the original gun. And the fusion requires the same level. I will know after another try. Wang Qiushui nodded, then try it quickly. He picked up the 2 new guns again, and then light flashed, and the 2 guns really became bigger guns. Qiushui interrupted, I don't know if the required experience points will increase after the fusion, and how much they will increase. If it increases by multiples, the experience points required later will be huge. He nodded, then picked up the 2 fused guns to merge. After the 2 guns were fused, they became a little bigger again. Not only the muzzle, but also the gun body, not to mention the weight. He frowned. The required experience points are still 1 point. This is a bit wrong. With the nature of the system, it will definitely not let him off like this. However, for a moment, he couldn't figure out where else he could be tricked. Wang Qiushui smiled and said, then don't worry about the experience points, just continue to fuse. If you continue to fuse like this, you might get a cannon. No, maybe the muzzle is bigger than the muzzle of the cannon, so it must be very powerful. He nodded and continued to fuse. Although he still had doubts in his heart, since it can be fused, and it is so cheap, he will continue to fuse. Even if it can't be used in the end, it can be used as a decoration. After all, cannons are the romance of men. As time passed, the gun in his hand became bigger and bigger. Needless to say, the muzzle became bigger, and the gun body was even bigger, and it became much longer. If it weren't for the gun body at the back, people would really believe it if it was carried out and said it was a cannon. It was also because it was too big and so heavy, so the gun was now lying directly on the ground. Qiushui didn't know when she came over with the little spider, looking at the black muzzle. It's so big, the little spider can be stuffed in it. The little spider was stunned for a moment, then looked at Qiushui, wishing to carve the 4 words do something human on his face. Qiushui chuckled, then rubbed Spider-Man's head. Wang Qiushui looked at the gun, and couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Isn't this gun too big? Can a normal person lift it? He tried it, then gave up. With my body, that has taken so many stamina pills, I can only barely carry it. Even if I can carry it, it's useless. After all, the firing of the gun requires stability, otherwise, the recoil will probably cause the bullet to deviate. Wang Qiushui frowned. It's useless after all the fusion. So much time and experience was wasted. He was stunned for a moment. Bullets. Then he looked at the pile of normal bullets next to him, and then at the oversized gun, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Wang Qiushui asked curiously, what's wrong with you? Qiushui sighed. The gun is too big, and the bullets are not suitable. Wang Qiushui looked at the gun, and then at the bullets. That's right, but now this gun can't be used, and there is no need to fuse the bullets. He shook his head and then shouted, "System, you come out. You have watched the show for so long. You should have seen enough." No wonder the system has been silent. It turned out to be waiting for him here. He now knows why it was said that buying a gun was cheap before, and the bullets are the big deal. Otherwise the gun is just a firewood stick, useless. The system said in a flattering voice, "The system is at your service." He sighed and said in a helpless voice, "Tell me, how many experience points do you need to get these?" Although he knew that the system was going to trick him, he had already accepted his fate. The system immediately replied, "These bullets on the ground can be fused into 2 suitable bullets, and the total fee is 1000. If you buy additional bullets, each one is 1000. In addition, this gun can be integrated into the car, and then equipped with fully automatic aiming and loading, as well as a series of things such as launchers, which is only 1000. In addition, daily maintenance, 1 point of experience points per day." He nodded. "That's it. 2000 experience points. No need to buy bullets for the time being." The system responded directly, "Okay, thank you sir." Chapter 341 Level 5 Zombie. The next morning, they got up early because they had to kill the level 5 zombie today. After Wang Qiushui was ready, he asked, "Are you sure that gun will work? We haven't tried it since we made it yesterday. What if it misfires?" He shook his head. "Even if it misfires, I can still kill the zombie with that bullet. Besides, there are only 2 bullets in total. If I want to buy a new one, it costs 1000 experience points. I'm not that extravagant." Wang Qiushui thought for a while. "That's right, these bullets are too expensive. When we go to the base, we might as well empty their ammunition depot, which can save a lot of money." He replied, "That's a good idea." Qiushui stood aside holding Little Spider. "Can Little Spider also join the battle?" He shook his head. "Little Spider is too weak. I'm afraid he won't be able to withstand a punch and will be hammered to death." Little Spider was relieved immediately. Finally he didn't have to fight. Qiushui frowned. "But, hasn't it been upgraded? And I beat it every day, but it's not in any trouble." Qiushui said, "That's because Spider-Man is joking with you. We are going to deal with a very powerful zombie now. Spider-Man's level is too low, and he is not strong enough to fight against that zombie. When he grows up, he can join the battle." Qiushui said "Oh," and walked aside with Spider-Man. But obviously, she was still very unhappy that Spider-Man could not join the battle. Wang Qiushui suddenly said, "Maybe she doesn't want Spider-Man to join the battle, but wants to participate herself. After all, every time we fight hard, she has no sense of participation and can only watch. Maybe she doesn't even understand why she has to work so hard to practice." Qiushui was silent. However, she still didn't want Qiushui to go the same way as herself. Although she hasn't seen any side effects of the transformation needle for the time being, it's still uncertain what will happen in the future. Besides, fighting zombies is a dangerous thing after all, and no one can guarantee that they will come back alive every time. Even with protective gear, she couldn't say for sure that she would survive. So, she didn't want her sister to take risks. He thought about it and suddenly waved to Qiushui. "Zillion, come here." Qiushui was sitting on the sofa in a daze. When she heard him calling, she was stunned for a few seconds and came over. "What's wrong?" He said directly. "It's like this. I have to look at the battlefield in a while, so I don't have time to operate the gun. When the time comes, I'll leave it to you. How about it? You are responsible for aiming, and when I say fire, you press the fire button." Qiushui was stunned for a moment, and then her face suddenly burst into ecstasy. "Really?" Then she looked at Qiushui again. "Sister, can I?" Qiushui nodded. Qiushui smiled even more happily, looking back at him. "But, what if I miss?" He waved his hand. "Anyway, there are 2 bullets. Just shoot. If you still can't hit, then just buy more bullets." Qiushui shouted directly. Brother-in-law Qiushui is so nice. Then she ran back excitedly and hugged the little spider. The little spider was at a loss, but soon hugged Qiushui happily. Qiushui looked at her sister's happy expression and said, "Thank you." He waved his hand. "This way I can concentrate on controlling my clone." Wang Qiushui shook his head and sighed. Just now someone said that bullets were too expensive and they were reluctant to use them. Turning around, they become so generous. He smiled. What's wrong? Are you jealous of Zillion? Wang Qiushui quickly said, of course not. It's just that I haven't played with a gun, let alone such a big gun. When can I play with it once? He thought for a while. Killing a level 5 zombie can get 100,000 experience points. Then we will find a few large zombie groups and let you shoot 10 shots. Okay. Wang Qiushui calculated. 10 shots. That's only 10,000 experience points. He responded, of course, the middleman must make a profit from the difference, right? By the way, Zillion, do you want to play? Qiushui hesitated. Isn't this a bit too extravagant? Wang Qiushui hugged Qiushui directly. Just think of it as fireworks to celebrate our successful killing of a level 5 zombie. Besides, don't you want to try this kind of powerful weapon? Qiushui thought about it and nodded. Okay then. Wang Qiushui looked at him again. It's a deal. Don't regret it later. He waved his hand. Am I that kind of person? Soon, the car arrived near the level 5 zombie. This was also the only level 5 zombie they had found after searching for a long time. The level 5 zombie was like a moving hill, surrounded by densely packed low-level zombies. He just reached out with his big hand, grabbed a handful of low-level zombies, and stuffed them into his mouth. Then, he swallowed them without even chewing. Then, he did the same thing again, as if he was not full at all. Wang Qiushui couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Although you said before that this is a tank type zombie, I have prepared myself mentally, but I didn't expect it to be so big. Even if it stands still, it will be enough for us to chop it for a long time. He nodded. Before, I just determined that it was a tank type zombie based on its movement speed, but I didn't think it would be so big. No wonder he can't walk. He has become a big fat man. I guess he is slower than others when he gets up. Qiushui held the Dragon Slayer spear. Then should we do it? He replied, of course. The more tank type zombies are, the better, and with such a big body, his reaction must not be very fast, so it should be much easier to kill. I think he should have been lured here and got a lot of food before he upgraded. Otherwise he would have been taken away by the base long ago. However, before you do it, you should take this quality medicine first. Wang Qiushui and the other person took the pill from him and ate it. He also ate one himself. Then, Wang Qiushui and the other person began to transform and got out of the car. Qiushui had been holding back for so long that she couldn't help but take action. She rushed towards the zombies. As soon as she got out of the car, Wang Qiushui grabbed her and said, don't worry, let them try first. After that, 2 zombies, one fat and one thin, jumped out of the trunk of the car and rushed towards the zombies on the hill. He sat in the car and looked at the zombies that were like a hill. This comparison is really a small witch meeting a big witch. I thought that my meat tank could at least play a role, but now it seems that I can only take a beating. Wang Qiushui smiled and said, who let you bully me before by relying on your size advantage? Now it's time for you to taste the feeling of being crushed by a bigger body. He said helplessly. This retribution came too quickly. Chapter 342. Clone Test. Qiushui sat next to him, looking at the zombies that were like a small mountain, and was already stunned. It's so big. It's a good thing that little spider didn't go. Otherwise he could have flattened it with just one finger. Little spider nodded repeatedly, looking thankful. Then Qiushui looked at him again. Can we shoot now? He shook his head. Don't worry, let's see what the situation is. That gun is a big killer, so it has to play the most important role at the critical moment. And we don't know what the other party is capable of yet, so we can't waste bullets. Qiushui nodded, not quite understanding, and looked at the zombies on the small mountain again. The zombies on the small mountain seemed to be hungry and were still eating. However, when he saw the 2 level 4 zombies that suddenly appeared, he suddenly paused, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. Then, the violent aura on his body surged out like a stormy wave, pressing towards the 2 zombies. However, the 2 zombies didn't seem to be affected at all, and were still running wildly. A hint of something strange flashed in the eyes of the small mountain zombie, and then he reached out with his big hand and directly grabbed the 2 level 4 zombies. At his level, the virus content provided by those zombies of 2 lower level was too low, so it was better to have zombies of similar levels. Unfortunately, there were not many level 4 zombies here, and many of them were speed zombies. Each one was smarter than the other, and they would run away when they saw him. Therefore, he could only eat some low level zombies to transition. Unexpectedly, there would be 2 level 4 zombies that would come to his door today, so he naturally couldn't miss them. The bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie looked at the palm as big as a door and said directly in a hoarse voice, "My small body can't stand it. I'm leaving first. Be careful." After that, relying on his light body, he jumped away directly. The meat tank zombie looked at the big hand and shouted in a shrill voice, "You are too disloyal. Fortunately I'm not very fat, so it won't affect my movements." After that, he rushed directly into the building next to him. With a bang, the big hand did not stop there, but directly crashed into the building and swept across. Soon, a meat tank zombie jumped out from the window on the 2nd floor. A closer look showed that the entire wall of the window was smashed. The meat tank zombie shook off the slag on his body. "This is too brutal." The bronze skin and iron bones zombie glanced at him. "I thought you had been caught." The meat tank zombie asked, "If I was caught, would you save me?" The bronze skin and iron bones zombie continued to run towards the hill zombie and replied, "Of course not." The meat tank zombie curled his lips. No conscience. Then he changed direction and ran towards the hill zombie. This was to prepare to split into 2 groups. Qiushui's body was shaking, and even the dragon killing spear in her hand began to tremble. Wang Qiushui asked, "Are you okay?" Qiushui responded in a suppressed voice, "Not yet. It's hard to say in a while. If you two want to test it, just test it well. You have to flirt with each other. And you use 2 male zombies to flirt with each other. Don't you feel disgusted?" Wang Qiushui silently stayed away from Qiushui, otherwise he would really be beaten, and whispered to defend himself, "You can't blame me for this." He said it first. "If you want to settle the score, go find him." He hurriedly said, "What happened just now was an accident. Now I'm serious." Seeing that his breath and big hand attack were useless, the hill zombie suddenly stood up, and 2 big hands slapped to both sides, attacking them. And those low-level zombies on the road, after being touched by the big hands, exploded directly and turned into a black mess. He couldn't help swallowing his saliva. This palm is really domineering. It can be said that all beings are equal. 1 palm over, all exploded. Wang Qiushui looked up at the small mountain zombie. "I thought he was already tall enough just now. After all this time, he was sitting to eat." Qiushui's eyes also flashed a trace of solemnity. This size difference is no longer something that can be made up by simple skills. Fortunately, she didn't rush over Ashley just now, otherwise the result would be hard to say. The copper-skinned and iron-boned zombie nimbly dodged the attack of the big hand again, and jumped onto the arm, rushing forward along the arm. The meat tank zombie thought about it, stood still, took a horse stance, and then pushed forward with both hands, colliding with the big hand. However, it didn't last long before the meat tank zombie was slapped out by a palm, smashing the wall behind it. Fortunately, the body of the meat tank zombie was strong enough, so it was not blown up by the hand of equality for all beings, and it was not seriously injured. The small mountain zombie did not continue to attack the tank zombie, but waved his big hand to slap the bronze zombie on his arm, because the opponent was getting closer and closer to his head. The bronze zombie jumped away and laughed. "Fortunately, my jumping ability is not bad, and I have a good perception ability, otherwise I really can't avoid such a large scared attack." A trace of impatience flashed in the eyes of the small mountain zombie. This small level 4 zombie was as annoying as a buzzing fly, so he slapped it again. With a snap, the place where the palm and the arm touched directly raised a gust of wind and waves, blowing the bronze zombie's hair, but still failed to hit. The bronze zombie looked at the big hand that was about to fall again, and rushed forward. "I can't play anymore. I will really be slapped flat later." So, the big hand fell again and again, but was dodged again and again. The bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie was dodging along the way, constantly approaching the head of the hill zombie. On the other side, the tank zombie took advantage of the other party not paying attention to him and quickly approached the hill zombie. He didn't bother to care about the low-level zombies that blocked his way and directly bumped into them, knocking them all over the place. At this time, the bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie had already reached the hill zombie's shoulder. He swung his hand down and actually swung out his nails like a baton. The nails of his 10 fingers were like 10 long sharp blades. Next, I'll let you taste my power. After saying that, he jumped up and poked the hill zombie's eyes with his nails. Level 5 zombies are naturally not so easy to deal with, so Wang Qiushui thought that he would poke his eyes blind first, just like he did with the cat zombie before, and then it would be much easier. The hill zombie naturally would not let Wang Qiushui do what he wanted, and directly closed his eyes and slapped him in the face at the same time. Seeing this, the iron-boned zombie kicked him in the face, then jumped back with the rebound force, while digging his nails directly into the neck of the hill zombie. Then I'll cut off your head. Chapter 343. Two people attack. However, after the nail was inserted, it was directly clamped by the flesh inside, before it could be pulled. At the same time, a big hand slapped the back of the neck. Seeing this, the bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie gritted his teeth, cut off the 5 nails with the nails of his other hand, and quickly dodged to the side. Fortunately, he dodged in time and barely avoided the attack. Wang Qiushui frowned. I didn't expect his flesh to be so strong that the nail got stuck when it was inserted. Although Qiushui on the side couldn't see it directly, she could guess roughly. She thought for a while and said, maybe this is also one of his abilities. He can control his muscles freely. In this way, even if he is injured by a sharp weapon, the wound will not be enlarged. Wang Qiushui frowned even deeper. In this case, wouldn't it be difficult for us to hurt him? He shook his head. No, the nails failed to cut smoothly because the nails were not sharp enough, and of course there are also reasons for muscle control. But the weapons in our hands are not those nails. If they can cut in, they should not be clamped. Wang Qiushui nodded. Then at least there is some hope of victory, otherwise it will be too difficult to deal with. By the way, didn't you say before that this kind of meat tank zombies are not very smart? Why don't we try the juice allure method? If it succeeds, we won't have to spend so much effort. He looked at the hill zombie and refused. No, this zombie is different. It seems that he doesn't have any brains, and he is even too lazy to eat. But his reaction speed to the outside world is still quite fast. After finding that the breath suppression is useless, he immediately switched to attacking with his big hands. There is no problem with the subsequent series of attacks and responses. So, he is definitely not the kind of brainless meat tank zombie we often see. Wang Qiushui sighed. Alas, I thought it would be easier. It seems that I still have to fight. On the other side, the meat tank zombie cut through the thorns and finally came to the foot of the hill zombie. Looking at the leg, that was like a stone pillar, he couldn't help but feel desperate. The most important thing is that the meat tank zombie is simply resistant to beatings, and it doesn't have sharp nails like the copper-skinned and iron-boned zombie. So, he thought about it, and directly swung his fist to hit the leg. After a hit, it didn't cause any damage, and the hill zombie didn't even look at him. The meat tank zombie gritted his teeth and said, "You force me to do it." Then, he stepped back a distance, before rushing towards the hill zombie. When he was about to reach it, he turned around, and twisted his hips in one go, and his whole body directly hit the leg. As a result, the leg shook slightly, and it didn't even move. However, this attack did attract the attention of the hill zombie. So, he kicked it out directly. The meat tank zombie blocked his body with both hands to minimize the damage, but he couldn't block the kick. Soon, the whole thing flew out, and stopped only when it hit the wall. Wang Qiushui suddenly laughed out loud. Is this move of yours called an trying to shake a tree? But to be honest, the contrast is too obvious. You have been fighting for a long time, and it didn't work, but you were kicked away by a light kick. Hearing her say this, Qiushui couldn't help but smile. He said helplessly, "There's nothing I can do. He's too heavy, and his skin is thick. My tank zombie doesn't have much attack power, so I can't do any damage." After kicking the tank zombie away, the hill zombie once again focused on dealing with the bronze zombie on his body. This thing was like a flea, jumping up and down on his body, which was very annoying. The bronze zombie kept trying, but it couldn't get back on the hill zombie's neck. As for other parts, he didn't want to do it at all. There was no point in doing so, and he would have to put his nails in it. So, after dodging the big hand again, he simply jumped back and landed on the ground, then quickly distanced himself until he was safe. The hill zombie looked at the tank zombie, then at the bronze zombie, and a trace of annoyance flashed in his eyes. After fighting for a long time, he still couldn't eat both of them. It was a waste of his energy. So, he grabbed the zombie under him and stuffed it into his mouth. As he ate, the wound on his neck actually healed, and the nails inside seemed to be pushed by something and slowly moved outward. Until finally, all 5 nails were pushed out and fell to the ground. At this time, there were only 5 almost invisible scars left on the neck, and there was no wound at all. Wang Qiushui recounted what he saw. There are still so many zombies around, which means that, unless we get rid of all those zombies, it will be almost impossible to kill him. By the way, we can use a juicer to get rid of those zombies. He shook his head. Those zombies didn't voluntarily become food. They were just suppressed by his breath and couldn't move. So, even if there is a zombie virus in the juicer, there is no way to lure them over. Besides, I suspect that the zombies on the hill can't only repair their bodies by eating. Wang Qiushui sighed. Then what should we do? Just fight hard? He nodded. Well, it's up to you two next. The 2 level 4 zombies can't test out anything. They can only assist from the side. Wait for you to try again, and I'll see if I can find a way to deal with him. Qiushui stood up and rushed over with the Dragon Slayer spear. Then let me see how powerful he is. Wang Qiushui also stood up, but sighed. It's hard to do 2 things at the same time. However, she still rushed over. The small mountain zombie didn't expect that there were 2 level 4 zombies here, because the 2 of them had been invisible and cloaked. However, he was shocked at first, and then his face was full of joy. In this way, there are 4 level 4 zombies in total, which can provide a large number of zombie viruses. Wang Qiushui looked at the small mountain zombie and almost drooled, and shouted, "Your eyes make me very unhappy." After that, she stretched out her arm and directly chopped with the long-handled soul-breaking knife. Since the opponent's body is thick and tough, he naturally can't use the earth hammer anymore. The small mountain zombie didn't think about it, and directly swept over with his big hand to meet the soul-breaking knife. However, the ultimate goal of the big hand was obviously Wang Qiushui. However, the big hand, which was always successful, finally suffered a loss this time. The soul-breaking knife cut directly on the big hand, and it was cut open in an instant, and chopped on the body of the small mountain zombie with the remaining force. In the air, black liquid splashed from the wound of the big hand, and black liquid also burst out from the wound on the body. The zombie on the hill felt the pain, and began to control his muscles again, trying to clamp the soul-breaking sword and keep it. Chapter 344 Foodie. Wang Qiushui would not let the other party get what he wanted. He pulled back hard and successfully pulled out the soul-breaking knife, and also cut the wound a little bigger. The small mountain zombie roared and slapped Wang Qiushui. Wang Qiushui stretched out his arm and avoided the palm. On the other side, the bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie was not idle either. He swung the hammer of the earth and smashed the legs of the small mountain zombie. However, perhaps because it was not a sharp weapon, no wound could be seen, so the small mountain zombie was too lazy to pay attention. The meat tank zombie attacked the other leg of the small mountain zombie, but it seemed that the damage was far less than that caused by the hammer of the earth. He took a look at the death and life knife in his hand, thought about it, and gave up the idea of sending it to the meat tank zombie. There was only one knife. If it was swallowed by the small mountain zombie, he would have to take it or not. It would be better to let the meat tank zombie swing his fist and hammer slowly. While the attention of the small hill zombie was attracted by Wang Qiushui, Qiushui jogged all the way around the small hill zombie, and then rushed into a building behind him. Then, when the small hill zombie attacked Wang Qiushui, she suddenly jumped down from the roof of the building, and the dragon killing spear stabbed the back of the small hill zombie's neck, which happened to be the position where he was injured just now. The small hill zombie didn't have time to think about how Qiushui got around behind him and slapped his neck directly, trying to kill Qiushui. Qiushui held the dragon killing spear, stepped on the neck of the small hill zombie with both feet, and then rushed forward. With a swish, a huge wound opened on the neck of the small hill zombie, and even the black chest cavity inside could be seen. At the same time, a stream of black liquid spurted out. Fortunately, Qiushui was wearing protective gear, otherwise this black liquid alone would be enough for her. Seeing this, Qiushui clapped her hands and said, "Sister is great." Then she looked at him again. "Now that zombie is seriously injured. Can we shoot?" He shook his head. The zombie only has anger in his eyes, not fear. It seems that this serious injury is nothing to him. Qiushui was puzzled, but his neck was cut so big, maybe we can shoot his head off with one shot. He looked at the hill zombie. "Don't worry, let's wait and see. You will definitely have a chance to shoot later." Qiushui replied, "Okay." She looked again. Qiushui rushed down from the hill zombie, dodging the palm slap. When she was not far from the ground, she jumped down and ran to the side quickly. With a bang, the hill zombie slapped her where she landed. After a while, as if realizing that he didn't hit anything, he raised his palm. Then, he raised his feet and stepped on the bronze zombie and the meat tank zombie respectively. The two of them were prepared, so they just avoided it. The small mountain zombie covered the wound on the back of his neck with one hand and stretched out the other hand to block in front of him, with the momentum of hitting whoever came up. At the same time, his eyes were wide open, obviously angry. Wang Qiushui looked at Qiushui. "How was that just now?" Qiushui shook her head. "Although it cut in, compared to his huge body, it can only be regarded as a superficial injury at most. Moreover, I don't know how fast he can repair it." Wang Qiushui sighed. "It's a pity that there is no such big knife, otherwise I can cut off his head in one go." At this time, the body of the small mountain zombie was visibly reduced. Of course, the magnitude was not very large, but it was still visible. In addition, he put down the hand covering the back of his neck and also blocked in front of him. Wang Qiushui and Qiushui looked at each other. What a fast recovery speed. Then, the small mountain zombie looked at the level 4 zombie in front of him vigilantly and scooped up a handful of zombies with his hands and stuffed them into his mouth. Wang Qiushui said angrily, "Isn't this cheating? Fighting and recovering blood at the same time. This is not fun." Qiushui's eyes flashed with a trace of solemnity. "Unless we can cause huge damage in an instant so that he can't recover or even kill him directly. However, this is not easy to do." He thought about it and said directly to Wang Qiushui, "Since he wants to rely on these to recover, then we should cut off his firewood from under the cauldron." Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment. "Drain the firewood from under the cauldron? How to cut it?" He explained. "As long as he can't eat those zombies, he can only rely on himself to recover. In this way, after a few more cuts, he will not be as huge as he is now, and then we will have a chance." Wang Qiushui looked at the group of zombies. "But, didn't you just say that they couldn't move? Then how can we prevent him from eating those zombies?" He responded, "They can't move, but we can help them. Anyway, those two zombies can't cause any harm, so let them be the porters and be responsible for moving the zombies into the juicer. You and Zilan are responsible for entanglement with the zombies on the hill. When the zombies here are emptied, it will be the death of the zombies on the hill." Wang Qiushui looked at the zombies. "Isn't this number too large? When will they be moved?" He sighed. "There's nothing we can do. Otherwise, no matter how hard you chop, it will be useless." Wang Qiushui thought for a while. "Okay, the two of us will try to cause as much damage as possible, and you will find a way to get rid of all the zombies." He nodded and began to think. Then, Wang Qiushui told Qiushui about this method, and Qiushui naturally had no objection. So, the two rushed up again and launched a new round of attacks on the zombies on the hill. He turned the car around and drove towards the zombies. At the same time, the juicer behind the car also opened the lid. The bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombies and the meat tank zombies rushed over quickly, holding the zombies on the ground and throwing them into the juicer. Since the juicer had enough space, there was no need to worry about not being able to fit them. Since the bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombies only needed to move mechanically, Wang Qiushui didn't have to spend so much time controlling the clones, and the movements of the main body became more agile. He had been staring at the actions of the small mountain zombie. After all, he was now like snatching food from the tiger's mouth. maybe the small mountain zombie would leave Wang Qiushui and the others alone and come directly to deal with the car. However, he found that he still overestimated the intelligence of the small mountain zombie. Because the small mountain zombie saw those zombies being stuffed into the juicer, and the number of zombies was decreasing, not only did he not come to stop it, but he worked harder to pick up the zombies and stuff them into his mouth. Later, he was too lazy to even look at it. No matter what it was, he stuffed it all into his mouth. He couldn't help but sigh. Foodies are different. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 Zombie Vacuum Cleaner. While the small mountain zombie was eating crazily, Wang Qiushui and the other two also launched a crazy attack on him. At the beginning, they wanted to rush to the head of the other party and hit the vital parts. As a result, the small mountain zombie did not forget to protect his vital parts while eating, making it difficult for their attacks to work. Later, he reminded, if you attack the head directly, it will kill him, and he will naturally not sit there and let you chop him. However, in his current state, if you chop him in other places, he may not resist. Wang Qiushui didn't quite believe it. Are you sure? He replied, I'm just guessing. What if it works? Besides, it's better for you to chop his feet and then run to the side than to be busy for a long time without chopping his head. If he wants to chase you, it will just stop him from eating. Wang Qiushui nodded, rushed directly to the feet of the small mountain zombie, and then chopped him with a knife. The blade and the handle sank into the leg, and the small mountain zombie was only concerned with eating. It seemed to feel pain under this attack, so he kicked out. Wang Qiushui dodged first with the help of his hair sense, and said with a smile, it really works. In this way, while he eats, we can bleed him. Let's see if he eats faster or we bleed faster. Seeing Wang Qiushui's success, Qiushui also followed suit and stabbed the hill zombie's leg with her gun. However, she was always on the move, just to cause damage, and would not stay for a long time. After all, she did not have Wang Qiushui's speed and perception ability. Afterwards, Wang Qiushui and the others began to harass the hill zombie in various ways. Although they did not cause enough damage, at least they prevented the hill zombie from becoming larger. Otherwise, with his desperate eating method, he might double in size, and it would be even more difficult to deal with. He looked at the hill zombie who was still eating, and then looked at the two porters, frowning. No, this speed is still too slow. We can't beat the other party. There was nothing he could do about it. The hill zombie's palm was too big, and he could not tell how many zombies he could catch with one palm, and he could stuff them into his mouth without even looking. The two porters could only pick up the zombies one by one and throw them into the juicer, so they were naturally not as efficient. He thought for a moment, oh, I remember there seemed to be extra vacuum cleaners in the warehouse. If we can upgrade a vacuum cleaner, the efficiency should be greatly improved. When they were collecting resources before, they had a place and no money, so they just emptied the electrical appliance store, which seemed to have several vacuum cleaners. Because it was a manual vacuum cleaner, it was too troublesome, so they threw it into the warehouse. What they are using now is a vacuum cleaner robot, which is much more convenient. With a thought, he directly moved the vacuum cleaner out of the warehouse. Qiushui looked at the vacuum cleaner curiously. Do you want to clean? He shook his head. You'll know in a while. Then, he said to the system, upgrade this vacuum cleaner. I want to suck all those zombies in. System, ding, deduct 100 experience points. The zombie vacuum cleaner has been upgraded successfully. This vacuum cleaner will only work on zombies, and nothing else will be sucked in. The effect of the suction depends on the degree of resistance of the zombies. He nodded. Those zombies outside are all fixed, which means their resistance is 0, so there is no need to worry about not being able to suck them in. Moreover, with this, they can be directly sucked in by a storm, and I believe it will be faster than the zombies on the hill. Thinking of this, he said again, system, merge this with the juicer, and send all the sucked in zombies into the juicer. System, deduct 100 experience points. The fusion is successful. Please feel free to use it. Although 100 experience points are a bit expensive, Considering the income in a while, he was too lazy to care so much. While he was upgrading the juicer, Wang Qiushui and the other person were still frantically attacking the small mountain zombie. The small mountain zombie didn't know if he was just focused on eating or if he thought the two people couldn't cause any substantial harm to him. Later, he didn't bother to pay attention to the two of them at all, just ate frantically and repaired the wounds caused by the two people. Wang Qiushui felt a little discouraged as he kept chopping. This is completely disregarding us. Considering how hard we tried to chop you, you should at least give us a kick, or at least show some reaction. You don't even have the most basic respect for your opponent. Qiushui had just pulled out her gun, but saw that the wound was recovering quickly. She sighed. Now I just hope he can clean up the zombies quickly, otherwise we really can't beat him. The speed of repair is faster than the speed at which we cause damage. Wang Qiushui suddenly said. I get angry just looking at this leg. Since we've been chopping for so long, and he hasn't reacted, why don't we give him a big one? Qiushui looked over. What big one? Wang Qiushui smiled. Isn't his repair speed very fast? Then let's attack the same place at the same time and chop off his leg. What do you think? Qiushui thought about it and rushed over with a gun in hand. This method is feasible. Let's try it first. If it really succeeds, at least it can cause serious damage to him. And without a leg, he can't even stand steadily. When the fight starts, we will have more room to play. Wang Qiushui nodded. Then let's start. I'll chop from the right to the left, and your gun will chop from the left to the right, and then we will just meet to form a circle. Qiushui responded, and then inserted the Dragon Slayer spear into the ankle. There was no other way. As the size of the hill zombies grew larger, their height was only a little higher than the opponent's ankle, and if they wanted to launch an attack smoothly, they could only choose here. Wang Qiushui also followed and inserted the soul-breaking knife. The hill zombie just felt a little pain in his leg, but it was no different from before, so he didn't think about it anymore, and continued to stuff zombies into his mouth. Eating was more important, otherwise he would be eaten by the opponent in a while. At the same time, a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. What on earth did that black hole thing come from? After eating so many zombies, his body didn't grow any bigger. What was the point of eating it? Wang Qiushui and the others saw that the small mountain zombie didn't react, so they pushed their weapons forward at the same time. The soul-breaking sword and the dragon-slaying spear had been clamped by the muscles of the small mountain zombie, but under this thrust, plus the blade was sharp enough, there was no obstruction, and they met smoothly in front. However, even so, the foot of the small mountain zombie was still not broken. Chapter 346 The Targeted Car. Wang Qiushui took a look and said, oh no, the place we were at before has started to repair itself again. No wonder we couldn't cut it off this time. Qiushui said directly, then let's go back and cut it again. As long as we are fast enough and cut it a few more times, we will definitely succeed. Wang Qiushui nodded, pulled out the soul-breaking sword, and then pushed it back in the opposite direction. So, just when he had just finished fusing the juicer and the vacuum cleaner, he heard a loud bang from behind. When he looked back, he saw that the small mountain zombie was already lying on the ground. Wang Qiushui and the other man smiled, looked back, and then chopped at the other foot. He couldn't help but ask, what happened just now? Qiushui shook her head. Those zombies blocked it, so I couldn't see clearly. But it seems that they cut off the foot of the big zombie. He thought for a while. Forget it, let them play slowly, I'll finish the things here first. Qiushui looked at him. What do you want to do? She only knew that he had been doing something just now, but she didn't know what he wanted to do specifically. He looked at the zombies and said with a smile, let me show you the long lost star absorbing technique. Qiushui looked at the zombies after hearing this, and Spider-Man also widened his eyes. The next second, a huge suction force came from the black hole of the juicer, and the zombies in front were sucked in at once. The zombies behind were also gradually pulled closer by the suction force, and it was only a matter of time before they were sucked in. The bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombie stood on the side of the car. Fortunately, I ran fast just now, otherwise I would have been sucked in. The meat tank zombie said beside him, don't worry, there is a confined space inside. Even if you are sucked in, you won't die. At this time, the lying Xiaoshan zombie suddenly sat up, with a feeling of sitting up and shock from a dying illness. Then, his big hand reached directly forward. Wang Qiushui and the other two were still trying to cut off the other foot, but seeing this, they had to give up, and fled to both sides. The big hand directly picked up the zombie in front of him, and took away the broken foot as well. The little mountain zombie took a look at the foot in his hand, and his eyes showed a burst of joy, as if he had seen a large piece of meat, and then stuffed it into his mouth. Wang Qiushui regretted, I should have thrown the foot into the juicer just now. Now he eats it back. We have done nothing. Then, black liquid extended from the broken foot of the little mountain zombie, and gradually condensed, and finally formed a foot shape. Then, another layer of black liquid extended and covered it, and turned into a layer of skin. It was not until the foot grew back, that the little mountain zombie stood up again. Qiushui's eyes were filled with solemnity. Now it's really in vain, and since he can regenerate limbs, it will be even more difficult to deal with. The level 3 high-speed rail zombie was killed by cutting off his hands and feet and throwing him into a juicer. Now this one has such a fast recovery speed. Can we still do it? Maybe we should think of other ways. Wang Qiushui clenched the soul-breaking knife, chop it a few more times, and it will be cut off. I don't believe it. Qiushui nodded when she heard it, and her fighting spirit was rising. She would not give up until the last moment of the battle. The small mountain zombie ate a few more bites in a row, but suddenly stopped and looked forward. Wang Qiushui and Qiushui both clenched their weapons in their hands at the same time, with a vigilant posture, to avoid the next attack. After all, the small mountain zombie would not stop suddenly, and the most likely possibility was that it was preparing to attack. At this time, the small mountain zombie looked at his hands, then looked ahead, and suddenly rushed forward. Along the way, I don't know how many zombies were trampled into a paste. Wang Qiushui and the others saw it, and quickly ran to both sides. However, after running for a while, they found that the target of the small mountain zombie did not seem to be them, so they stopped again. Qiushui watched the small mountain zombie rushing over, and its huge body directly smashed the buildings on both sides, and shouted hurriedly, "The big zombie is coming." The little spider crawled on the ground with 8 legs, and didn't know where to escape. In the end, he simply hid in Qiushui's arms. As long as he couldn't see it, he didn't have to be afraid. He smiled and said, "Don't be afraid, he can't catch up with us." Then he snapped his fingers. There was a roar of the engine, and the car was like a rocket thruster installed at the rear. It rushed out in an instant, just avoiding the palm of the small mountain zombie. The small mountain zombie got nothing, and only smelled the exhaust of the car. When he looked up again, the car had gone far away. He was so angry that he stood up immediately and then picked up a building next to him. Then, the building began to deform in the hands of the small mountain zombie. After another round of squeezing, it turned into a ball. If it weren't for the rubble falling from above, no one would have believed that it was actually a house. The hill zombie held the ball in one hand, leaned back, and then pushed it hard, and the stone ball in his hand went directly towards the running car. Qiushui looked at the huge stone ball and was completely shocked. Little Spider was even more straightforward, just lying on the ground and waiting to die. He smiled and said, "This posture is quite standard. The shot put in the high school entrance examination must have scored full marks. But it's a pity that it's just a stone ball. It can't hurt us." The car accelerated again and rushed out when it was about to be hit by the stone ball, just avoiding the attack. Afterwards, the car also made an S shape, which was very coquettish. Seeing that the attack missed, the hill zombie pulled out a steel bar or something else from the side. Anyway, it was a huge iron pillar, and threw it like a javelin. This time the javelin came with great force, and its speed was much faster than the stone ball just now. It was not so easy to dodge it. Qiushui, who had just come to her senses, opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but couldn't speak. The little spider, who had just climbed up, lay down again neatly. He looked back and said, "I really doubt that this guy was a professional athlete before. Does he like to throw things so much? But fortunately, my car is not a vegetarian." Then, a layer of black stuff was seen spreading on the roof of the car, directly covering the transparent glass below, and finally nothing could be seen. This was the steel skin of the car, and it was the kind that was stacked with many layers. The next second, he received a message from the system. The car body was severely damaged, and the durability is being replenished. The replenishment has been completed, and the car body is intact. There was no vibration or sound inside the car, as if nothing had happened. Soon, the black color faded away, and returned to its original appearance. Qiushui and the little spider showed a kind of surprise on their faces, after surviving a disaster. In the distance, Wang Qiushui and Qiushui finally breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 347 Speed Race. Watching the car go away, the hill zombie roared for a while, and actually sat back, and ate the zombies, without any intention of chasing. It seems that, if the car had not sucked in the zombies too fast, it would not have attracted the attention of the hill zombie. Wang Qiushui and the other person looked at each other, not knowing what to do for a while. After all, no matter how hard they chopped, they could not cause any damage, at least before the zombies were eaten. At this time, the car turned around and drove back. He said directly to Wang Qiushui, "You can attack him as before, or find a way to stop him. I will continue to use the vacuum cleaner to suck away the zombies. As long as I have enough time, these zombies can be cleaned up." Wang Qiushui then relayed it to Qiushui, and the two nodded together and rushed towards the hill zombie again. Since it is to stop the opponent now, there is no need to try every means to attack like before. The car did not return directly to the original route, but made a circle, ran to the side passage, and then sucked in the zombies in front. In this way, the car is just in the blind spot of the hill zombie, and it is not so easy to be discovered. Even if the other party really finds it, they can take the opportunity to escape, and these houses will become the best obstacles. Wang Qiushui and the other person soon came to the vicinity of the hill zombie, but they did not attack the ankle like before, but each found a suitable place. Wang Qiushui touched her hair. "My poor hair, I don't know if the 4 strands grew back last time, and now they have to fall off again. Forget it, the overall situation is more important, and it's just a few hairs that fall off." After saying that, a few of her hairs shot out, and shot into the eyes of the hill zombie. The hill zombie stopped eating, and his eyes closed painfully, and his throat roared. However, within 2 seconds, a few hairs suddenly fell out of his eyes, and then his eyes opened, and nothing happened. Then, he ate as if nothing had happened, and he didn't even want to settle the score with Wang Qiushui. Wang Qiushui sighed, "My poor hair, it's gone to waste. If I had known it was useless, I wouldn't have used this trick. However, it was very effective against the cat before. Why is it useless now?" He sucked all the zombies in this area and was driving to the next alley. He explained, "First of all, he is too big. Such a small hair is like a grain of sand in his eyes, so it can't hurt him. Secondly, his recovery ability is too strong. Just now, your clone's nails were inserted into it, and it was squeezed out and recovered intact. Now it's just a hair, so it's no problem." Wang Qiushui sighed, "Then I have no choice. Let's see Zillion's consciousness can be used, but it can only stop 1 second for the same level, and it is estimated that it can stop less than 1 second for those higher than oneself. There is no need to use this, unless it is a critical moment." Qiushui put the Dragon Slayer spear aside, turned into a crab directly, and then spit out a bubble from her mouth. The bubble floated all the way to the hill zombie, and when it landed on the hill zombie, it began to grow rapidly, and wrapped him up. However, the bubble only wrapped up half of the body of the small mountain zombie, and suddenly it exploded with a pop. The small mountain zombie took a look, and started eating again. Qiushui shook her head. "No, his body is too big to be completely wrapped. Even if it is wrapped, it is impossible for him to rise to the sky, and there is no way to stop him from eating." Wang Qiushui's eyes suddenly lit up. "Then just wrap his hand directly, even if it can only delay for 1 second. That's good." Hearing this, Qiushui looked at the hand of the small mountain zombie, then looked at the group of zombies on the ground, and spit out another bubble. However, this time the bubble did not float towards the small mountain zombie, but floated towards the zombies on the ground, and directly wrapped them up, and floated into the sky. At this time, a big hand swept over, directly pinched the bubble, and stuffed the zombie inside into its mouth. Wang Qiushui was stunned for a moment and looked at Qiushui. Do you think he doesn't eat fast enough, so you're feeding him? Qiushui shook her head. It was just a mistake just now. Let's try again. Then, the same bubble wrapped a group of zombies and floated into the sky. However, when the big hand swept over, the bubble turned around and just happened to dodge. The big hand didn't give up and swept again, but still couldn't catch the bubble in its hand. Then, it gave up and swept to the ground. At this time, the zombies on the ground were wrapped up by another bubble, and they also avoided the attack of the big hand. Wang Qiushui looked at the angry hill zombie, then at the bubble, and suggested, we can use this method to transport the zombies to the juicer, which will be much faster. He quickly said, no, this will definitely attract the attention of the hill zombie. I can just suck the zombies secretly under his nose, which is not slow. If I'm discovered, I can only run away again. Wang Qiushui thought for a while. Okay, but in this way, I seem to become a spectator, and I don't feel much participation. He smiled and said, where is your clone? Let him go, and hit the hill zombie in the chest. Wang Qiushui shook his head. Forget it, his size is not even as big as someone's finger. Let's keep it, otherwise he will be eaten later, and then we will really be in vain. However, bubbles have a limit after all, mainly because Qiushui can control a limited number of bubbles at the same time, so the hill zombie started eating again soon. As long as it doesn't interfere with his eating, nothing else matters. And he was still continuing his plan. It must be said that it was really cool to suck in the storm like this. At least the experience value was visibly rising. It seemed that he needed to change another way in the future. Just let Wang Qiushui or Qiushui transform, then suppress the breath of those zombies, and then start the vacuum cleaner. No longer have to wait for those zombies to jump in by themselves. It was just a waste of time. Unfortunately, there was no luring skill like the big fish, otherwise it would be more fun to lure all the zombies in and solve them all at once. As time passed, the number of zombies was also decreasing rapidly. Of course, only a small part was eaten by the small mountain zombie, and most of them were sucked away by the vacuum cleaner. In order to further suck in the zombies, the car was getting closer and closer to the small mountain zombie, and now it could really be said that it was under his nose. The small mountain zombie picked up a few zombies, then looked in front of him, and suddenly felt something was wrong. The zombies were consumed a little too fast. At the same time, a sound came into the ears of the small mountain zombie, which was the sound of the juicer starting. Chapter 348, Headshot. The small mountain zombie stood up suddenly, and at the same time, he did not forget to put the zombie in his hand into his mouth. Then, he punched in the direction where the sound came from. With a bang, the house broke into pieces, and some slag fell on the roof of the car. He smiled and said, it's almost time to go anyway. After that, the car drove forward directly. Wang Qiushui and the other person rushed towards the small mountain zombie together at this time, trying to stop him. Unexpectedly, the small mountain zombie suddenly jumped up on the spot and appeared in front of the car, and the house and road under his feet were directly trampled. He took a breath. I almost thought the monster appeared. I was scared to death. Qiushui and Little Spider were already scared. This zombie had been eating for so long, and its body size was much larger than at the beginning. At this time, the small mountain zombie punched down and hit the roof of the car. With a click, the steel roof was directly dented, and even the transparent glass on the next layer began to crack. But then, those cracks and dents began to repair again. He shouted directly, you are so cruel, I won't play with you anymore. Then, the car backed out of the alley, turned a corner and drove forward. I don't know what the small mountain zombie was thinking, but he chased after him again. Wang Qiushui and Qiushui just happened to rush over, and Qiusui's two large claws touched the ground. Sand sink. The ground began to sand instantly, and one of the small mountain zombies' feet stepped into it, and soon sank down. However, his body was so huge that he grabbed the houses on both sides with his hands, and pulled them out. Qiushui gritted her teeth, and continued to increase the area of the sand sink, and soon both feet of the small mountain zombie were included. Under the action of gravity, the small mountain zombie inevitably sank. When it sank halfway, Qiushui lifted up the two claws, and wiped the sweat from her head. Such continuous output still consumed a lot of her physical strength. If she continued, she would not be able to hold on for long. The ground stopped desertification and solidified again, but half of the body of the hill zombie was buried in the soil. Wang Qiushui rushed up with a knife and started to attack the hill zombie. However, with previous experience, she no longer chopped vigorously, but began to slice the meat, slicing the meat off the hill zombie bit by bit. While slicing, she snorted coldly, "Let me see how you will eat it later. There are so many pieces of meat. Even if you pick them up, you will have to pick them up for a while." Qiushui also picked up the dragon killing spear and started to slice the meat on the other side. I saw those black pieces of meat in the air falling like snowflakes. If you don't look at the color, this scene is still quite beautiful. The hill zombie felt the pain in his body, but he couldn't break free for a while, so he could only repair it frantically. However, as the repair and slicing of meat progressed, his body size was obviously getting smaller. The car had already stopped. He looked at Qiushui. "Are you okay?" Qiushui was stunned for a moment, then nodded. "I'm fine." He pointed at the half-buried Xiaoshan zombie and said, "Now he can't move. It's a good opportunity to shoot. Are you sure you can do it?" Qiushui looked at the zombie and then nodded. "Can you let the sisters leave first? I'm afraid of accidentally hurting them." He nodded and said to the two of them, "You stay away first. Zillion is going to shoot." Hearing this, Wang Qiushui and the other person looked at each other and quickly ran to the side. It's not that they don't trust Zillion, although it is part of the reason, but the main reason is that the bullet is too big. Who knows what the power of the shot will be? What if it explodes? Xiaoshan zombie felt that the attack on his body disappeared, and at the same time, because his body became smaller, his body could move a little, so he quickly pounded the ground with both hands. Cracks began to appear on the ground. After a while, Xiaoshan zombie might really rush out from it. At this time, a huge black muzzle suddenly rose from the front of the car, followed by the gun body, until the entire gun was exposed. However, the gun did not fall down, but was aimed directly at the hill zombie, as if someone was holding it. A scope and a button appeared in front of Qiushui. He said, "The scope is used for aiming. Remember to aim at the zombie's head. After aiming, press the button to fire. By the way, say it before you fire." Qiushui nodded and began to aim. Several healing pills appeared in his hand. Soon, Qiushui said, "Okay, get ready to fire." He nodded, "Yeah." Then he threw all the healing pills in his hand into his mouth, and at the same time, launched the consciousness descent on the hill zombie. Bang! He took several steps back, and his brain seemed to be hit by countless hammers at the same time. Fortunately, with the healing pills, his consciousness began to recover quickly. Qiushui looked at him happily. "Great, I hit it. By the way, what happened to you? Are you okay?" He waved his hand and looked over. Sure enough, the shot hit the small mountain zombie and smashed half of its head. It was worth the price he paid to fix the other party's body through the descent of consciousness, making the other party still for a moment. Of course, he was also taking a gamble. Even if Zillion failed to hit the head, at least he could hit other places. Fortunately, Zillion did not let him down. However, although the small mountain zombie was shot in the head, it was still alive. The wound was repaired. However, perhaps because the injury was to such an important place as the head, the repair speed was relatively slow. Wang Qiushui looked at Qiushui. "Did the zombie stop for a while just now?" Qiushui nodded. "It should be, because he used the descent of consciousness." Wang Qiushui looked at the car, then at the small mountain zombie, with a flash of determination in his eyes. He then looked at Zillion again. "There is still one bullet. Don't stop. Keep shooting, and make sure to blow his head off before it recovers." Qiushui nodded and aimed and fired again. This time, he finally saw that after the bullet came out of the gun, it rushed forward with its huge size and unstoppable momentum. Although it was huge, its speed was not slow at all, and one could even see that the air around the bullet was distorted. At this moment, the movement of the small mountain zombie suddenly stopped again, and even the repair stopped. With a bang, the bullet rotated and passed through the remaining half of the head, blowing the whole head to pieces. The body of the small mountain zombie drooped down, and only a small part of the head was connected to the body. However, even so, he was still not dead. That small part was repairing with difficulty, but the speed was slower than before. Chapter 349 Meeting an Acquaintance. The car sped forward under his control. Qiushui wanted to take credit from him, but seeing that he looked unhappy, she also kept quiet. Although she didn't know what happened, she could see that he was very anxious. The car soon arrived near the hill zombies, and then he teleported directly from the car to the driver's seat, opened the door and jumped out. He ran all the way and finally saw Wang Qiushui. Wang Qiushui slumped on the ground, her scattered pupils were converging, and the only trace of consciousness made her eyes focus on him. "You are here?" After saying this, she even pulled out a smile at the corner of her mouth. He helped Wang Qiushui up, took out a handful of healing medicine, and stuffed it into her mouth. "Are you crazy?" When the healing medicine was swallowed, Wang Qiushui's consciousness was almost restored. She shook her head. "If you can do it, why can't I? Besides, it seems that this is still worth it." He sighed. "I have prepared the healing medicine just now, and I can take it immediately. But it's not as serious as your injury." Wang Qiushui smiled. "He lost half of his head, and his consciousness is even more incomplete, so my injury should be lighter than yours. It's just that the treatment was slow later, but it's not a big problem." He helped Wang Qiushui to lie against the wall. "You rest here for a while. I'll go and deal with the zombie first. This vitality is really tenacious. It's not dead yet." Wang Qiushui nodded, leaned against the wall, and closed his eyes to rest. He held the death and life knife, and rushed towards the hill zombie, then stepped on the other's body all the way to the shoulder. Qiushui had already used the Dragon Slayer spear to cut off the remaining head here, but because there were too many places that were still connected, it would take some time. As she did it, she asked, "Is Qiushui okay?" He shook his head. Qiushui nodded and asked, "Where is Zillion? Was she scared just now?" He smiled. She was scared when she was chased, but she recovered when she was shot later, and she was very happy when she hit the target twice. Qiushui also laughed. "Really?" With the joint cleaning of the two, the speed was much faster, and the recovery speed of the hill zombie was too slow, so it didn't take long to completely remove it. The scanner no longer showed the red dot representing the hill zombie. At the same time, he also received a message from the system, assisted Qiushui to successfully kill the level 5 zombie, and the level 5 promotion task has been completed 1/2. He walked down from the zombie. "He is dead. I will go back to see Qiushui." Qiushui nodded and jumped down, but she walked towards the car. Qiushui was sitting in the seat of the car, hugging the little spider with excitement. She didn't have much strength, so it was agreed in advance that she couldn't get off the car without permission to prevent any accidents. When Qiushui was about to walk to the car, she suddenly heard a swish sound from behind. She looked back and saw a female zombie with long nails standing on the shoulder of the small mountain zombie. She couldn't help but frown. "Is it her?" The female zombie didn't seem to have any interest in Qiushui. The nails of both hands were directly inserted into the body of the small mountain zombie, as if trying to pull him out of the ground. However, because the body of the small mountain zombie was too large and buried too deep, it was not pulled out. Qiushui stopped and started to rush towards the small mountain zombie. At the same time, the copper-skinned and iron-boned zombies and the meat tank zombies were also rushing over there. The female zombie frowned, and the breath on her body emanated, but it had no effect on the three. Then, she jumped to the ground. Qiushui thought she wanted to run, so she immediately increased her speed. However, she was not a speed type after all, and no matter how fast she ran, her speed was limited. After the female zombie landed, she did not run away. Her nails instantly stretched out, like a row of sharp guillotines. Then, she inserted her nails into the body of the small mountain zombie, and then gently pulled. With a bang, the part of the small mountain zombie that was exposed to the ground was separated from the lower body, and fell to the ground without support. The female zombie licked her lips, glanced at Qiushui, and then inserted her nails into the upper body of the small mountain zombie. Then, she actually dragged such a large body away. However, she is a speed type zombie. Although she is dragging such a heavy thing, her speed is still not slow. At this time, the car drove over, and he also helped Wang Qiushui to walk over. Wang Qiushui looked at the figure running farther and farther away. How about I chase her at full speed? She can't run as fast as me. He opened the car door. Get in the car and rest for a while. There's no rush. Then, he looked at Qiushui again. The remaining body can't be wasted. Move it into the juicer first. Qiushui glanced at the female zombie going away and nodded. Then, she put the pliers on the ground and pulled out the remaining half of the body. Then, with the help of the bronze-skinned and iron-boned zombies and the meat tank zombies, they finally stuffed the body into the juicer. Afterwards, several people got on the car and returned to the carriage. At this time, the female zombie had turned into a black dot and would disappear in a while. He waved his hand. Don't worry, don't forget that we still have a scanner, and the speed of this car is not slow, so she will definitely not escape from our grasp. After that, the car accelerated in the direction where the female zombie fled. Wang Qiushui looked at Qiushui. Is it her? Qiushui nodded. It's her. Although she has upgraded and become more powerful, her appearance has not changed. This female zombie is a level 3 speed zombie that ran away before and has not been seen since then. Wang Qiushui snorted coldly. I didn't expect to run into her again. We can't let her get away this time. By the way, is she a level 5 zombie? She seems to be quite fast. He replied, yes, she is a level 5 zombie. Now that I think about it, the one who ran away and didn't come over last time with the level 4 zombie might have been her. Only she could guess that it was us, so she chose to run away directly. Wang Qiushui frowned. Then she is really cunning. However, she is obviously level 5, and the rest of us are only level 4. Why did she run away when she saw us? Moreover, we have been fighting for so long, and she didn't show up. As soon as the Qiushui zombie died, she ran out. Isn't this too weird? Qiushui also found it strange when she heard it. Could there be some trap? He shook his head. Neither the scanner in the car nor the scanner I turned on later saw her. So, she should have come to pick peaches after the Qiushui zombie died. I think she should have been waiting for an opportunity nearby. Chapter 350 Fishing. Qiushui asked curiously. Waiting for an opportunity nearby? Waiting for what opportunity? Did she know we would come in advance? He shook his head. I think she should have awakened the ability of reconnaissance and can discover the deaths of other zombies. In this way, she can use her own speed to snatch the corpses from other zombies. So, she will wait nearby until the small hill zombie is killed and then come out to pick peaches. A large number of corpses of the same level are the reason why she can upgrade so quickly. It is also because of this that she dare not fight with us. After all, her strength should not be very strong. Otherwise, she can solve the small hill zombie by herself. Why bother to steal the corpse? Wang Qiushui suddenly realized, that is to say, she only has a level, and her actual combat power may be only level 4 or level 3, so she ran away when she saw us. We can't let her get away this time. Chase her quickly. He shook his head. No, have you forgotten the cat before? Although her strength is not that good, she is still a speed type zombie. Let her run for a while and consume her energy first, not to mention that she is dragging such a heavy corpse. It just so happens that you two can take a break. Now it's like fishing. She has been hooked. Let's take a walk first. Anyway, she can't run away. No matter how fast the speed type zombies are, can they be faster than their car? No matter how fast it can run, this car directly consumes the virus crystals as power. As long as there is power, it will not get tired or stop, so there is no need to worry at all. Wang Qiushui nodded and sat directly on the sofa. Okay, I was exhausted just now. I will take a rest first. Qiushui thought about it and suddenly asked, what if she eats the corpse while running? Will she have reached level 6 when we catch up? Although the opponent has a level, there is a gap of 2 levels between level 4 and level 6. It is hard to say whether we can beat her at that time. He shook his head. It's okay, she just took away half of the body. Even if she is about to upgrade, she will eat the whole body. If she really upgrades, we can just change our target. Anyway, we are in the car. We can fight and escape, so why should we be afraid of her rushing in? Qiushui thought about it, and it was true. The attack of the hill zombie just now didn't damage the car, so it shouldn't be a problem to escape from the other party. Thinking of this, she also sat on the sofa to rest. The sand trap just now consumed a lot of her body. Only then did Qiushui come to her sister and said excitedly, sister, I just killed that zombie as big as a mountain with 2 shots. Qiushui touched her sister's head with relief. Zillion is so amazing. Qiushui squinted happily and then counted on her fingers. I also killed that big cockroach last time, which means that I have killed 2 big zombies in total. He lay on the sofa. I didn't expect Zillion to hit the head with both shots. It seems that Zillion is still a bit talented in shooting. Qiushui said, as if it was a matter of course. His head is so big, how could I miss it? By the way, can you leave that zombie to me later? He shook his head. No. Qiushui was immediately unhappy. Why? He laughed. The zombie is too fast. So fast that it can't be seen with the naked eye. Moreover, her body is too small, and a bullet is bigger than her head. Isn't it a waste to shoot her with such a big bullet? I'll leave it to you next time I encounter that kind of big zombie. Qiushui nodded. Then it's a deal. You can't go back on your word. He nodded, then leaned on the sofa and began to rest. At the same time, he did not forget to control the car, keeping a distance from the female zombie, as long as the other party was still within the range of the scanner. I don't know how long it took. The female zombie finally stopped. He looked around, and it turned out to be an open area. It seems that the female zombie also knew that they were chasing her, so she chose such a position. This kind of open area, for speed type zombies, at least will not be subject to so many restrictions, and can move freely. He didn't think much about it, and drove over directly. Soon, the back of the female zombie appeared in their field of vision. Moreover, as the distance got closer, the back became larger and clearer. The half body of the Xiaoshan zombie lay in front of the female zombie, who was holding the body with both hands and lowering her head. Although the specific movements could not be seen, it should be eating. At this moment, a cloud of dust rose from the windshield of the car, blocking the figure of the female zombie. Wang Qiushui asked, what happened? He smiled. Nothing, just some tricks. Qiushui asked curiously, tricks? He nodded and explained, this place should have been created by the base, and mines were buried underground. Although I don't know what the base originally intended to do, it is obvious that these mines were triggered by us. He was also certain, after receiving the damage information of the car sent by the system, but it doesn't matter, it was repaired in a short time anyway, and there was no big deal. Wang Qiushui thought about it. So, she deliberately led us here. He replied, it should be, but these mines can't work on us. The car quickly passed the minefield and continued to move forward. But not long after, the car suddenly tilted. A closer look showed that the front of the car had sunk, and the people in the car were almost unable to stand. At this time, the female zombie suddenly turned around, with some black liquid on her lips. She looked at the sunken car and smiled triumphantly. However, the black and white teeth looked so scary that the smile became terrifying. He shook his head. Those without strength just like to play these little tricks. However, in the face of absolute strength, these are nothing. After saying that, the car directly increased its horsepower and actually drove out of the pit and quickly approached the female zombie. The female zombie's smug smile froze, and a trace of fear appeared in her eyes, but soon turned into anger. However, she did not rush over to attack the car, but turned around and ate the corpse. Soon, the car came near the female zombie, but did not hit it directly. The other party can dodge at the limit, but there is no point. The female zombie seemed to see nothing and continued to eat. Wang Qiushui and the other person took the transformation injection and the equality medicine, and then got out of the car and walked towards the female zombie. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.